on YouTube. Let us get the TikTok live going as well. And let me just announce it real quick on Discord. Okay. Okay. It seems like... Okay, multi-chat is working. Nice. Okay. Did you debate on Gabble? I did. We covered 3 topics. Is MAGA a net positive for the United States? Should we prioritize border enforcement over expanding illegal immigration? And then the last one was, does foreign aid cause corruption? Something along those lines. Parker raid. Oh shit, what's up? What's up? Thank you everyone who's hopping on from the Parker raid. Hopefully that will mean that we are able to get some guest requests for debates. Shout out to Parker. Oh man, the last few days we've been going live. It's been tough finding actual people in the guest requests who want to debate. So hopefully this will bring with it some opportunity to actually discuss. I mean, there's the 60 Minutes story that was being censored about the people being sent to CCOT. There was the Supreme Court just ruled that Trump cannot legally send the National Guard to Chicago. Major L for Trump. And much love to Parker. Holy shit. I'm hoping these people in the guest request then are actually Trump supporters. Let's go. Hey, how old are you?
I love you! I love you!
Thanks. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Okay. If we don't get any debate guest requests, usually what we do around here is we just cover some of the recent news. And the news, there's a lot to cover there. Again, you have censorship with CBS, the 60 Minutes story on CCOT, and then I also want to go over the Supreme Court decision on the National Guard deployment. But I'm hoping that we can get some debates before we switch over to news coverage. Let's see. Okay. Hey, how old are you?
No, it's just gonna be me the entire time.
Cool. Well, everyone who's here from Parker's Live, if you guys, it's your first time, make sure you're following up above and be prepared for most of the guest requests to either be people who want to say the N-word or little kids or trolls. Because there aren't many actual Trump supporters left. There's a reason his approval rating is so low. It's because no one supports him anymore. But let's see. Maybe one of these people is real. Okay, that didn't work.
You're my dad! I love you! I love you!
How many accounts?
You're my dad!
How many accounts do you have? Are you the other guy in the requests
I
also?
love you so much!
Okay. Well, there's one more guest request. I'm going to assume this is not an actual debate, so if anyone here is watching and wants to stop being a keyboard warrior and actually debate why they like Trump, you can hop in the guest box. If not, we are going to move to covering some of the recent news today. But I want to get at least one debate out if we have a Parker raid in here. It's going to be that kid again? Yeah, I won't be surprised. Hey, how old are you? Hello? Calling Elijah to aisle 5. Clean up on... Are you there? Hello? Okay. Awesome. Very cool. And I'm going to assume these other 3 guest requests are also all that little kid.
Yes, it is! You're my dad! I love you!
Okay, Parker just said that kid has so many accounts and does that to me. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Well, if this is your first time here, maybe we won't do debates today. Maybe we're just going to cover the news. Okay, there's someone in here named Dean Stop Hiding. This seems like a MAGA person.
Yo, Tiger just noticed me. I love you!
I love you too. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the guest requests besides this kid? Or how many burner accounts does this kid have? I'm just gonna go through all the guest requests, I guess, and then if none of them are real people, we'll switch over to covering the news. I do want to watch that 60 Minutes segment on CCOT, which ended up being aired in Canada, even though the Trump administration tried to censor it. Is this that same kid? No? Another person in a hurricane or something? Awesome. Hey, how old are you?
I love you!
Oh.
I love you!
So this is same story, but went through puberty, it sounds like.
What's up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. How old are you?
Oh, okay. I'm 19. My
Okay,
birthday is
great.
2/24/06.
Awesome. Do you disagree with
I
any of
just
the
had a-
prompts above me right now?
No, I just had a quick question. Could I ask
Okay.
it really quick?
Yes.
So I was curious, man. I know this stuff with ICE and everything is just, sorry, my voice, I'm sick right now, is affecting a bunch of people.
Mhm.
Do you think by any chance it's going to get better? I was just curious.
You mean over Trump's term?
Yeah. Is there any way it could be stopped? or
No,
anything?
it's probably
my-
going to get much worse next year because the massive increase to ICE's budget that was passed in the Big Beautiful Bill goes into effect next year. Where actually they're cutting the funding for the FBI and like the DEA, and they're funding ICE so much that it's going to be more than most countries spend on their entire military. So you're probably going to see a lot of ramping up of deportations next year, unfortunately.
Thanks, man. That sucks.
it does.
I just have a whole bunch of friends from Venezuela and stuff, and I'm actually getting ready to move to Florida. My girlfriend lives there,
Mhm.
and with the working status and everything, man, it's just horrible, to see.
It is. All we can hope is that we have free and fair elections in 2026 and 2028, which is a big if. But as long as we can, then there's room to change this. But otherwise, we're heading in a very dark direction, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sucks. Well, you take care, man, and
too.
you keep doing the good work, okay?
Thank you, and I appreciate you for watching and sharing your story with us. We have 9 guest requests. Please, it's one of these people a real Trump supporter. It's all we need. Just one debate before I switch over to the news. Is that too much to ask? Hey, how old are you?
You're so cute, man. You're so cute like Dean.
Okay. It's dedication, I guess. I'll give him that.
Hello?
Hey, how old are you? You sound okay. Yeah, that sounded like a little kid. If I was with my grandparents, I'd have them. Oh, I
Thank
would
you,
love
man.
to
That's really
debate.
nice. Thank you. I love you.
A lot of accounts this guy seems to have.
Okay, I just want to say a couple things.
Was that the same kid? I don't know if that was the same kid.
Yo,
Hey, how old are you?
25.
And do you disagree with any of the prompts above me on the screen right now?
Yeah, I just had a question for you, though. What do you think about the Groyper gubernatorial candidate out of Florida, James Fishback?
Oh yeah, I know James. He's been on a couple of
Yeah.
Jubilee videos. Yeah.
He's
Um,
favored to win.
Is he?
Yeah, check out Polymarket. Byron Donald sucks so bad and like is such a shill for APAC that like he's pulling all over the moderates
Okay.
and lefties.
Would you like to debate any of these prompts above me, or did you just want to share the James Fishback thing?
I wanted to ask your thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on the Groyper congressman? I voted for Trump so we could get more Groyper congressmen.
Oh, I
and
think
gubernatorial
Groypers
candidates.
are losers, and if Nick Fuentes becomes the face of the Republican Party, Republicans will never win another general election for the next 3 decades. So, good luck
But
with that.
if we
Good luck with that. Hey, how old are you?
Pardon?
How old are you?
48.
And do you disagree with any of the prompts on the screen above me right now?
Yeah, I personally wouldn't say Trump's corrupt.
You don't think Trump is corrupt?
Absolutely not. He's for the
So-
farmers.
What else would you call it when him and his family are profiting to the tune of tens of millions of dollars because of the Binance crypto scheme, among other things?
Well, that's every politician. Every politician does that.
No, not every politician launches a
pretty
cryptocurrency and then
damn
makes
well.
deals with foreign governments for AI chips so their family can benefit to the tune of $2 billion. Not everyone does that, actually.
Well, yeah, 99% of these politicians.
Sure, can you name me one other politician in like the national scene who is actually launching cryptocurrencies while they're in office to profit?
Well, not a crypto scam, but Joe Biden was a scammer.
Joe Biden was a scammer.
Damn right.
Who did he scam?
Scammed the American people out of $150 billion.
How so?
He stole from the farmers.
He stole from the farmers. And
Damn right.
are you trolling?
And Trump's giving back to the farmers.
You're
Trump's
trolling?
giving $11 billion. $11 billion to roll crop farmers.
Are you trolling right now?
No, sir.
You
From
you
Lincoln,
understand
Nebraska.
that Trump has single-handedly destroyed the agricultural industry with his tariffs and mass deportations, right?
Well, no, my farm doing good.
Your farm's doing good. What do you farm?
Row crop, corn, cash
Corn.
crop.
Corn.
Yeah, we just got a brand new John Deere. John Deere
are
X9.
you aware that Donald Trump just had to bail out a bunch of farmers because of his tariffs? No one's buying American agriculture exports anymore.
To be honest, I think that's just reports. Like
No. Trump announced, "Hey, I'm giving a bailout to the farmers." He had to do the same thing in his first term because when you put massive tariffs on other countries and antagonize them, they will do the same to you, and then your exports go down.
No, I wouldn't say so. It's not a bailout. It's just like here's some money. Like you
I
guys.
feel like
doing
you're
a good
trolling.
job.
There's one way to check this. What's your favorite thing about Trump?
My favorite thing about Trump,
Yeah.
probably the deportation.
His mass deportations right now?
Damn straight.
Why do you like those?
We have too many illegal aliens here.
Define illegal aliens because they're deporting people who are documented asylum seekers and they're going after people who are green card holders. So
Well, no, I
why
think-
are
I
you just
think that- I
labeling
think-
these people illegal?
I think that's like a 1 in 1,000 chance.
Say it again.
That's like a 1 in 1,000 store. Like most.
How
of
is
them,
that
like,
1 in
not-
1,000 one of ICE's new strategies is camping out at immigration court?
Well, no, I think that's made. That's just some made up news outlet.
So ICE is not camping out at immigration court.
No, sir.
Have a good one. I don't think that was a real person. This looks like a real person. If you guys are enjoying the live, make sure you're double tapping the screen, Cash App, PayPal,
ICE is
and
not
then we're
camping
on
out
the
at
link tree in the
immigration
bio.
court.
No,
Oh,
sir.
we're getting a crazy echo from you.
Have a good one. I don't think.
Hello?
This looks like a real person.
Okay. Apparently not. Okay, let's get Hate Libs up here. Hello?
I love you.
Okay. If you love me so much, maybe let me do some debates. How about that? How about you don't keep requesting?
You're so cute. You need to know that.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
The bathroom get tushy woofies from out there. You pull the
Hey, how old are you?
You hear them in there?
Is this another little kid, or is that someone in the background and I'm speaking to an adult right now?
That's
Okay. Yep. Well, there's a reason I have this up. Trump supporters are in hiding, unable to defend him. All of these guest requests are trolls. There's no one left who supports Trump. It's getting kind of sad. And embarrassing. They were everywhere in election season. They were in everyone's lives. Talking about he's a businessman. He knows how to run the country. Hey, how old are you?
Yo, 29.
And do you support Trump?
I do.
Do you disagree with any of the prompts above me right now on the screen?
Deportations are awesome.
You don't think the deportations are dangerous, inhumane, and wasteful?
No, it's very important.
Okay.
Number one
can you
position for us
explain
groypers.
What's very important about going after documented asylum seekers who are following all the rules and they came to a port of entry?
So in 30 years, you think Nick Fuentes could win presidency? You said we would lose for 30 years, but after 30 years, would we win?
No, I think you guys would do really well in Republican primaries because everyone on the right seems to love Nick Fuentes, but in a general election, y'all are going to get cooked.
No, the middle loves him too.
Really?
The far left,
I'm
you never
pretty
see,
sure Nick
you never
Fuentes'
see the
approval
comments.
rating
Why
is
do I
like-
find myself?
I guarantee you Nick Fuentes' national approval rating is under 5%.
Oh, with the boomers, sure, but how many comments do you
with
see on
people who
TikTok?
vote.
Wait,
With
let me
people who
speak. Let me
vote.
speak. How many comments do you see on TikTok of lefties say, "Why do I find myself agreeing with Nick Fuentes? Why is Nick Fuentes speaking facts? Why do I?" Then how many times are the lefties, who's all
When
tuning
he's
into the Nick
talking about
Fuentes
Gaza,
stream?
when he's
You know,
talking
Dean
about Gaza,
Parker, all those kids are all watching Nick Fuentes when they turn their shit off, and that's where they get their
everyone in
talking
the
points.
political
Dean
scene is
especially.
watching Nick Fuentes because he's a rising voice in American politics. So obviously, I don't think that's surprising to anyone.
He's the most entertaining. He's cutting edge. He's got the best shit.
He's cutting edge.
Yeah, he called JD Vance. He called the war in Iran months before it happened.
Sure,
He
I'm
called
just saying,
JD
like,
Vance at
anti-Semitism and
35-1.
sexism are not cutting edge. It's been around for decades. It's like the oldest trick in the book is
No,
use fear,
no.
fear
Look
and
at the
division.
party.
Fear and division. It's all it is.
No, you could turn into Nick Fuentes' show 10 years ago. It's the same as today. Turn on Tucker. It's exactly like Nick Fuentes was 10 years ago. So he is cutting edge by definition.
I agree. He's taking over the right. Tucker and all these other people are trying to emulate him.
He is cutting edge. Yeah. So we are the party. We're taking over. 1 out of 4 people in the RNC, the staffers, are Groypers.
By all means, run a Groyper in a general election. You will lose very badly.
Fishback's about to win. Fishback's about to win in Florida.
We'll see if he wins. Do we have anyone who wants to debate the prompts on the screen? Or is everyone just here to spread the gospel of Fuentes? Is it too much to ask for one semi-normal Trump supporter? Is that even a thing? By the way, the reason Trump's approval rating has fallen off a cliff is that these idiots went mask off way too quickly. Stephen Miller and Russ Vought, they became very overt with the nativism and the xenophobia and the trying to gut the executive branch and civil service protections. If they were smart, they would have done it a little bit more slowly. They went mask off really quickly. Most of the country is like, I don't like this. This is why Democrats are crushing in special elections and off-year elections. Because the average voter, even a lot of people that voted for Trump in 2024, they actually don't like overt anti-Semitism and sexism. They actually don't like that. People that live in these echo chambers and Twitter, where half of them are bots, they might think this is super based and super popular, but that is just not the case. I'm muted? Am I actually muted? It's showing my mic is working. We got 3 more guest requests before we move on to the news today. Hey, how old are you?
Hello?
Yes, hello. How old are you?
21.
And do you support Trump?
Yes, I do.
Do you disagree with any of the prompts on the screen right now above me?
Yeah, I disagree with the deportations are dangerous, inhumane, and wasteful.
Okay. So my first question there is, why is the Trump administration going after documented asylum seekers and people that are following all the rules? Because the refrain you often hear is, we just want people to come in the right way. Why are people who come in the right way being punished?
Well, there's immigrants coming into the country illegally.
What does that mean?
And, sorry?
What does it mean to come here illegally? Because people often just take this phrase for granted. What does that mean specifically?
Well, what do it means, whatever.
Because the Trump administration will label people who have green cards or people that are here seeking asylum legally, they're going to court, they'll label them illegals, illegal aliens. I mean, these are words that are designed for rhetorical purposes to other these people and make them seem like an outgroup. My question is, when you talk about having to go against illegal aliens, who are you even referring to? Because it seems like this is a very ill-defined term in MAGA.
Well, I'm referring to the immigrants crossing the border into the United States, coming into the country illegally, murdering
sneaking
people.
Past the border.
Yeah, sneaking past the border.
So then why is the Trump administration going after people that don't do that?
Well,
I mean, are you aware that ICE is literally camping out at immigration courts? And you'd agree, if someone has a court date at an immigration court, there's documentation of them. They're following a legal process. Hello? You there? Do you want to talk about a different prompt? No? Okay, he left. Okay, cool. If you guys are enjoying the live, make sure you double tap the screen. Follow up above if you're not already following. And if you'd like to support a radical left lunatic such as myself, Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo are all in the link tree in my bio. But following and subscribing on YouTube are both free. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube. We are also live on YouTube, by the way. If anyone wants to watch this in full screen with a much better setup, switch over to my YouTube, link tree in bio. Okay, I'm hoping one of these people is willing to debate. Holy shit. Hey, how old are you?
I'm 49.
Okay, and do you support Trump?
Yeah, and I voted for him with both my hands, my entire chest, and if I could have used the foot, I would have.
Okay, that's good to know. So do you disagree with any of the prompts above me right now?
Yeah, I was listening to because you took forever to bring me up. I thought you were avoiding me.
I was going through everyone in order. You were at the bottom of the list, but
Should skip everyone for me, but moving forward, you know it. I disagree with all of them, but I want to start with mass deportations because I didn't like what you were saying to that other man.
okay.
Okay, I am for the deportations. I don't understand why you're not.
Because the deportations are endangering public safety, they're treating people inhumanely, and they're a waste of money. And they hurt our economy.
It's not a waste of money, and we're not treating people
Well, do you wanna go
inhumanely.
point by
We
point
need
there?
to give people.
You want to go point by point there instead of just doing like gish galloping stuff? So like we can start with the first thing: mass deportations are dangerous. Let's start with that. Then we can talk about inhumane and wasteful. You disagree that they're dangerous?
There's danger within everything. You can be at home making a pie and catch a stray. So of course there's danger.
I mean
in
structurally,
the
like it makes
deportation.
America less safe.
How can deporting people make America less safe?
Because they're rediverting important law enforcement resources from the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, and the DEA, agencies that actually go after international trafficking and terrorism. Those people that do important work are being reassigned to immigration enforcement against non-criminals. The FBI's budget has been cut, so they are sacrificing actual law and order, actual law enforcement in favor of just performative cruelty.
Great. So you said it makes our nation less safe by stopping international issues. You literally just said that, but at the end of the day, no, it doesn't.
International
You literally
issues.
highlighted how they're taking, they're withholding funds from
They're
agencies.
reallocating
taking measures
important law enforcement
internationally.
resources towards things
Hold
that
on,
are not
Adam.
actually dangerous.
Adam Kane, let me finish, bro.
Please.
All right. You literally, I'm still manning your argument. You said they're reducing funds for agencies that take measures to mitigate international threats.
And domestic,
Ow.
yeah.
Yeah, now you added the end domestic. It was cute the way that he was coming up like 100. By the way, what a dedicated young fan.
I know.
That was like 14 accounts, bro. Like I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
It was so fast how he even got in the queue over me. Like, it's
Yeah.
like he was requesting from like different numbers,
Yeah.
on different phones. But anyway, the deportations are necessary if these people are coming in here illegally, and we need to enforce the laws.
What do you mean they're coming in here illegally?
They're coming into this country and abusing the asylum claim to make it seem like they're victims when they're not,
How are they abusing it?
because they're lying. You have to be under threat of life.
Wouldn't a judge
for
have
your-
to determine if they're lying?
No, that's not true. A credible fear
is.
interviewer. No, a credible fear interview judges if you're lying. Now
No,
you
a
can
credible
appeal
fear
to an.
interview schedules you a court date basically with a judge that
That's not
actually is
true.
going to decide whether or not you get asylum or a
That's
deportation
not true.
order.
That's not true.
It is.
So a credible fear interview actually determines whether you can stay in this country or not, and you can appeal to
while
an
what?
immigration lawyer. Yeah, let me finish, bro. You can appeal to an immigration lawyer who can then decide to go off of the credible fear interviewer's recommendation, or even see the claim. Because just because an asylum seeker once appeals to a judge doesn't mean a judge has to take their case. That's first and
This
foremost.
just isn't true, number one. A credible fear does not grant you asylum.
It doesn't. I never said that.
Then what is your claim? Then you would agree a
I
judge
said
has to grant you a judge has to grant you
but
asylum.
if they say no, chances are you're going to get rejected.
Do you agree that a
You
judge
can
has to grant
appeal
you
to it.
asylum?
A judge, of course, grants you asylum, and a credible fear interviewer assesses whether your claim that your life is under
I
threat
know.
for your school, for your skin color, your particular group,
Immutable
they
traits,
decide
yeah.
whether you can come into the country and see an asylum judge. But if
Yeah.
a credible fear interviewer says no, you can appeal to an asylum judge. But the way you're making it seem is like once an asylum seeker comes into the country, they could just see a judge, and then the judge
I'm
determines.
referring specifically to people that have already passed a credible fear interview and they have scheduled court dates that are documented within the immigration court system.
We know that the last president did not enforce
Can I just get a
1325.
response to that?
Say that. Say it again.
Why is the administration targeting people that are going to immigration court that have scheduled dates? Why are they
Right,
ambushing them at those court dates?
because these people claimed asylum falsely. We know that we have
How can you
intel
assert
from
that?
these nations because we have intel from these nations that they have that they come from. Can I finish though, sir?
You
Is that
can
okay?
finish, but you're spreading misinformation. But go ahead.
I'm not spreading misinformation. I'm not spreading misinformation that you have to be under the threat of life to qualify for asylum. And if you falsely claim asylum, then your shit gets revoked and you get deported, right? The last administration was very weak on asylum laws, as you know, and was letting people in that did not qualify under asylum. Those are the people that were getting out.
The person who decides whether someone qualifies for asylum or doesn't is the immigration judge who is adjudicating the specific asylum case. It is not true that the Trump administration is checking for thousands of people individually whether their asylum case is valid. They just wanted to
They're
juice
not.
up the
I never
numbers
said that.
because they have a quota of 3,000 deportations per day. And when you set a quota instead of prioritizing public safety, the easiest way to run up those numbers is go after the lowest hanging fruit. Who is the lowest hanging fruit? The most law-abiding people, the taxpayers, the people coming to immigration courts, the people that are not hiding from DHS, the ones who check in. They're being punished for checking in. They're being punished for following the law. Why?
No, right now we are apprehending these ones that falsely claimed asylum, which is not all of them. We are granting asylum to a few people. We are seeing case by case, depending on what intel we have on their nation. We see that from the asylum seeker that actually shot the 2 National Guards. He was granted asylum from Biden's and under
By
Trump.
yeah.
Now, let me tell you, right? Understand that we are only going after these false asylum seeker claims because we haven't expanded the budget. In 2026, you're going to see what's up because we got
That's for
170
deportations,
million.
yeah, but he's been firing immigration judges and replacing them. The reason you had a quote-unquote asylum
They're
crisis
Article
under
2
Biden
judges.
is because we didn't have enough immigration judges. And yes,
Adam,
they are
they're
Article 2
Article
judges. That's
2
the issue.
judges. Yeah, they're Article 2 judges
That's
at the
the issue.
behest of the executive branch. Well, that's the Constitution, buddy.
That's not in the Constitution. It's in the Immigration
What's
Nationality
Article 2?
Act.
What's Article 2?
Article 2 is the executive branch, but immigration courts are an invention of the
so they're
Immigration
Article 2
Nationality Act,
judges.
not of the
That's why I said
Constitution.
it's the Constitution.
Sure, but you can't just say Article 2 as an argument. I mean, what is the actual executive branch doing? Are they abusing power? That's the actual question.
You can't abuse the power that has been delegated to you by Congress or by the
You
Constitution.
can't abuse governmental power delegated by the Constitution?
No.
So if someone was to bribe the president to appoint someone as Secretary of State, he could say, okay, my constitutional power is to appoint someone to this position, so I can't possibly abuse
That's
it. Would you?
unconstitutional. As long as you're doing it
That's
lawfully,
uncon-
you can't
That's not
abuse.
true. That's not true, actually. The Supreme Court said it's legal now, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, it's a separate topic.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, you're saying that abuses of power can't exist?
Abuses of power can exist. Abuses of power,
Abusing
the way
government
you're
power.
thinking it, like he's within his jurisdiction, executing the law as it is written, codified, and is put in the Constitution. Because you don't like the way he's doing it, he's abusing it. No, we're not letting that
Well,
fly.
no,
dog.
there's been adjudicated cases here that the Trump administration's immigration enforcement has violated the First Amendment, people's right to call a lawyer, people's right to due process. Courts have adjudicated this.
That these people under expedited that are being removed under expedited due process are being denied their First Amendment. The First Amendment, you said? Due process, First Amendment? That's what you said?
Those are two of the constitutional rights that are being violated right now by ICE and DHS under the Trump administration, yes.
Can you show? Well, not show me. You don't pull up proof. You're not that.
Judge Bill Young, appointed by Ronald Reagan, ruled that the Trump administration, at the behest of Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, and Marco Rubio, are specifically trying to chill pro-Palestinian political speech and basically scare people away from protesting Israel. It's why they put Mahmoud Khalil in handcuffs for expressing his opinion, and he missed the birth of his firstborn child because he was sitting in a fucking detention center for expressing his opinion in the United States.
Now they moved the goalpost that because he missed it, because they couldn't deport him. They were saying, oh, he's out of the country.
It was illegal.
And now that he's not out of the country, he got due process and he stayed in the country. Like, oh, he's missing the birth of his child. Now they're moving the goalpost to pull the heartstrings of the people.
No, it
When
was
at the
illegal.
end of the day, he's still in the country, right?
Because the Trump administration tried to do something illegal and a court had to stop them.
The Trump administration tried to go by the law. As I know, any temporary documentation under U.S. Code 1201, if I'm not mistaken, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke any temporary documentation that they feel at any
They can't
time.
just revoke
Now,
someone's green card because they don't like them.
and the courts saw that fit, and we see the balance. But that doesn't mean that they were just blindly acting in authoritarian fashion.
Yes, it does. I
and
can read you
disregarded the law.
I have the judge's conclusion pulled up here because I always like reading it on my
listen,
live.
I'm agreeing with the judge's conclusion. What I'm telling you is, don't make it seem like they're just a regime that's acting outside of the bounds of the law.
Yes, they are. This is an authoritarian regime. This is an authoritarian administration.
But the courts decided that Mahmoud Khalil had the right to stay in this country.
And let's
So what's the problem?
let's read specifically what this court decided, because we are discussing the Trump administration and their immigration agenda. And I'm quoting now from the judge's decision. For all these reasons, this court finds as fact and concludes as matter of law that Secretaries Noem and Rubio and their several agents and subordinates acted in concert to misuse the sweeping powers of their respective offices to target non-citizen pro-Palestinians for deportation, primarily on account of their First Amendment protected political speech. They did so in order to strike fear into similarly situated non-citizen pro-Palestinian individuals, proactively curbing lawful pro-Palestinian speech and intentionally denying such individuals the freedom of speech that is their right. Moreover, the effect of these targeted deportation proceedings continues unconstitutionally to chill freedom of speech to this day. If that is not authoritarianism, nothing is.
Do you think that people with anti-American sentiments should be allowed privilege in our nation?
What do you mean allowed privilege?
Just allowed to, they have an anti-American sentiments, and they should just be allowed to be loud and vocal about it. Anybody should just come over here and complain about this country.
We have a First Amendment.
This is what's disgusting about you people, right? So anybody can just come into this country and complain about this country.
Yes.
Why don't you go back to where the fuck you came from?
Or how about you come to the United States where the entire purpose of the First Amendment... No, this is fucking gross. The entire purpose of the First Amendment... Thank you so much for the Galaxy.
You do Galaxy to drop, right?
Huh?
You do Galaxy to drop?
I don't even know what that is. Thank you, Adam, so much for the Galaxy. The Trump administration is acting in an overtly authoritarian way here. You're saying, how dare these people use their First Amendment right to express their opinion? If the First Amendment doesn't protect criticism of the country, what is the point?
The point, why would you go to somebody else's house and complain about their living room?
This is not a house, this is a country.
This is a country.
It's a horrible analogy.
It's not a horrible analogy. You can't go somewhere else and complain about them. You can't do that.
A house is private property. This is a nation with laws.
We are private property. We're a sovereign nation.
Yes, exactly. We're not a house.
Okay, we're a sovereign nation, and to protect our culture and our economy, we must protect it against people that don't like our fabric of life.
Our culture,
so we can't just open the door for everybody, bro.
Our culture is multiculturalism. Our culture is criticizing the government and having the First Amendment right and the civil liberties to protest the government without fear of favor or being put in handcuffs.
So you're for people coming into this country using up our school system, our economic system to enrich themselves and better themselves. Let me finish. And better themselves, and then complain about the country while using the institutions we have for our freedoms to use that against the country that gave them the opportunity. You think that's right?
No, the framing is incorrect. When people come here, our economy does better. Wages go up. Jobs go up. The economy grows. About. You just said they come here to use and abuse our education system and our economic system. Then you pivoted because you brought those up.
No, you pivoted.
You brought up the education and the economy, and you said they're coming here and they're ruining those things.
No. I'm not saying that they're a detriment to because that's a separate conversation. I'm talking about them
just said that they come here to abuse our education system.
No. They come here to use, and I'll call it abuse because I don't like them over here. So I call it abuse. Right?
You can't just call it abuse. It's not abuse.
Too many people that hate America into this country to use America.
You can't just call it abuse if it's beneficial for the country.
It's not beneficial to it's nothing. It means nothing to us at the end of the day.
This is just not true.
Listen to me. The $100 billion that they contribute to the tax system is dropping a bucket to the 3.9 that we contribute to our tax system.
Let's legalize them so they can contribute more.
How about we deport them so we have
that hurts our economy. It hurts our country.
It doesn't hurt our economy. Now let's stop pivoting. Let's stop pivoting. You can't come into this country.
Not pivoting. It's all the same
for
topic.
The good that is in the country, and then disregard and then shit on the country like it's completely bad.
You're saying there's millions of people coming here. There's millions of people.
America a terrorist nation.
Calm down. You're saying there's millions of people coming here just to shit on the country. They're just evil people. They're like, I want to go hurt America. I'm going to take my children and the few dollars I have and walk hundreds of miles through cartel-controlled territory just to seek a better life because I'm an evil movie villain. You think that's happening?
Yeah, they want to come here, make money, build back in their nation, and then leave our shit in the fucking dump. That's exactly what
they
they
wanna
want to
live
do.
here.
That's what all these fucking illegal
wanna live
aliens
here.
do, bro. No, they don't want to live here. They want to use this nation for what it's got and then leave it in the dump, turn it into Skid Row.
Why do you think these people are just like evil people that want to come here and hurt us? What is so different about
Because
them?
they don't
were
care about
born.
it. You
They
can
were
hear the way
born on
they
a
talk
different
about our
side of an
laws,
imagine.
Adam.
You're saying because they were born on a different side of an imaginary line that speaks to their character, their value as a human being, which is pretty gross.
No, it's their intentions with the country. They don't care about the country. They care about
You're
themselves,
lying.
enriching
Where are you getting
themselves.
this from?
And they don't care. No, we don't. I'm not lying because it's evident in how they speak about our laws.
Who's they?
It's evident how they speak about our
Who's they?
about our economy and everybody, the Arabs,
Everybody.
the Asians, the Hispanics. Yeah, they're all the illegal aliens that come here.
Be honest.
Speak about except my family. My family never complained about this country.
Be honest.
Never disrespected this country.
Is this about actual efficiency or is this about race?
This is about efficiency, man.
So
But
because
this
you're
is about
talking
the
about the
culture that
Indians, the Arabs, the Latino, like is that
No,
relevant?
Yeah, because they all come. Yeah, because they all come with this frame of mind to empower themselves and their and build back in their nations, not caring about America's
No, no, no.
well-being.
Why is empowering yourself bad? When people come here and empower themselves, they also empower the United States economy.
But they do not empower the United States economy. They actually weaken it, sir.
This is not true. They
They
raise
weaken it.
wages. They
Now-
create jobs. The GDP grows as a direct result. They create complementary jobs. Mass deportations cause native-born Americans to lose jobs. They push wages
How?
down.
How?
Because when more people come here, aggregate demand goes up. When aggregate demand goes up, a business's demand for labor is going to go up. So either they raise
Yeah.
wages or they hire more people to keep track. Like, for example, someone
What?
comes here undocumented, they're paying for food, they're paying rent, they're paying to buy gifts for their family on Christmas. Like, they're spending money in our economy. That creates jobs. That raises wages.
Please understand me that the demand that they add to the infrastructure can accelerate to a point where it's not sustainable.
What does that
The
even mean?
Yeah, meaning they could the reason we want steady growth through a birth rate, meaning the infrastructure and the economy can handle that.
Our
But
birth
a
rate's
boom
declining.
of people just coming, you gotta let me finish. A boom of people coming in by the 10 millions every 4 years can add a pressure. Stop ad-libbing, bro. Can add a pressure to the economy that is not sustainable to the infrastructure. Understand that demand can go through the roof to where wages won't be able to keep up because not only are they adding a demand, but they're undercutting. You don't think these people come with trades
Did you
of
just say
being
10 million people come every 4 years?
No. I'm saying if we continue under what the Biden trend was
Biden inherited
pushing,
that crisis
then,
from Trump.
then we would have seen that same trend.
Biden inherited that crisis from Trump.
Listen, what are you going to pull out? 2019 numbers?
No, I'm going to pull up Trump's immigration chart that he loves showing at his rallies. It's the one he was pointing at
the
when he
one
got
where it
pew-pewed in
starts
the
at-
ear. Hold on.
Bro.
I have to change the scene to share my screen. Hop back in the request real quick. I'm going to let you up. Just give me 1 second. I want to screen share real quick. Okay. You can hop back in the request. I'm going to let you up. As soon as you're ready, you can hop back in the request. It just won't let me switch the scene to screen sharing if someone else is in the live. Do you see this chart?
Yeah. I know that chart where he starts it at March 2020, the beginning of COVID instead. I know that chart.
So the chart where
I'm familiar
Trump
with the
claims,
chart.
just for everyone here to know, Trump claims he left office in April of 2020 because that's when the border encounter started skyrocketing. We all know that Trump actually left office in January of 2021, and you can see here the
Right.
trend line is going straight upwards. Biden inherited this crisis from Trump, and then he handed Trump declining border encounters.
Okay, so that's a fucking
This
lie.
is factually correct.
First and foremost,
It is just
CBP,
factually
first of all,
correct.
You showed me a chart that he shows instead of CBP numbers reflecting the trend going from 2017 to 2023. All right. The only time you see a spike in the numbers, according to CBP, is and the other office that monitors land. Not land, but sea and like airport terminals and stuff like that.
So you're saying these numbers are fake?
They report a hike. They report a spike in 2019. In response to Trump destabilizing Venezuela, which he had to do.
He
right?
had to do that?
Yeah, he had to do that. He's a narco president. We need to knock him down. We
Don't
need to get
tell
him
me
out
you
of here.
support the Venezuelan boat strikes too, dude.
I'm not only do I support it, but I get hype every time I see one.
Really?
I'm gonna turn on my camera so you don't think I'm trolling, because I think you might think I'm trolling.
I
bro.
don't think you're trolling. Just maybe I'm crazy here, right? Let's just say I take the premise for granted that these boats are actually bringing drugs here, which I don't take it for granted. Let's just say I do take it for granted. If I'm working in law enforcement, I'm thinking, let's seize the boat. Let's search their phones. Let's ask them, who are your suppliers, your buyers? What routes do you take? Let's interrogate them. Let's indict them. Let's offer them a plea deal so they can rat other people out. Let's not blow up the evidence and the defendants. That seems like a pretty silly way to
blow up
attack
the evidence. In fact, the Dominican Republic found evidence after one of the bombings. They found cocaine in the water.
And was there anyone left to charge?
Hell no, we don't need to do that. We
Why?
need to finish them.
If
Why would we need
they're
to
doing
charge
something so illegal,
unalived
why not
kid-
charge them with
You
a
know-
crime? Then there's due process and they can prove it's so
you
bad.
know, those people on the boats, listen, there are families that were affected by those people on the boats that never thought they would get they will never get revenge or some type of retribution for that. When they
Those
saw
strikes
those
are illegal.
missiles hit those people, when the families of a raped 9-year-old girl or unalived father, the daughter of an unalived father, saw that her murderer was bombed in the middle of the sea, I know she jumped for joy and called Trump an angel. Thank you.
I must have missed this. You're saying someone who
Thank
murdered
you.
a 9-year-old girl was part of these bombings?
I
Can
know
you show
those are
me?
rapists and unalivers and drug traffickers that got bombed.
Can you show me that?
You know what? Can you show me that they're not?
I can't show you what they are because the administration is not sharing any information and these strikes are
I
fucking
know
illegal.
they came out. Listen,
These strikes
81
are
people.
illegal.
81 people got unalived during those boats. If I'm not mistaken, one came out to be a Colombian farmer or whatever, a fisherman. A family identify him. Yo, rest in peace to that man. I'm sorry that happened to you. What about the other 80, bro?
Whoa,
How come
whoa,
their
whoa.
families
Why are
didn't
we
come
just
out
glossing
and
over the
identify
fact
them?
that someone got drone striked illegally and they weren't even
I
doing
didn't gloss
anything
over that. I
wrong?
said rest in peace. There are outliers to every situation, but there are 80 other people that should have been identified by their innocent families. Why aren't they crying?
We don't know if those are outliers or not. And guess
Okay,
what? Guess
why
what? There'd
aren't
be a
at
lot
least
less
another
confusion.
5, bro? Look,
if we
another
indicted
5,
these
Adam.
people.
Listen, another 5 people could come out and say, listen, he was nothing. He was a regular metal worker and he was just out fishing for Christmas. And one more. Why only one was identified by the family? Right? Because the other 80 were disgusting murderers and kidnappers and
If they're
unalivers.
so
That's
bad,
what they bought.
if they're so bad, why not indict them?
Because we don't need to waste our time and money and resources
Well,
doing
this is
this.
a matter of what's legal. They can't just be drone striking
Why is it
Venezuelan
illegal?
boats.
Why is it illegal
Because
to
the
bomb them in
authorized use
international
of
waters?
military force does not apply to boats off the coast of Venezuela heading to Suriname.
No, do you know what they try to reach? They try to reach and say, the president's job is to keep up treaties according to the Constitution. The Geneva Convention says that Article 6 we're not to do that, but that is for combatants in war. Congress has not declared war.
Drone strikes are only acceptable under the authorized use of military force, and even then, only if
Wrong.
there's an imminent threat to the United
Wrong.
States.
As long as there are no boots on the ground, it's not considered war.
I'm not saying whether it's considered war. I'm talking about the legality of
Obama
these
used it on
strikes.
Syria, pushed the war powers.
Hold on. There's a big
Hold on,
difference.
what?
There's a big difference here. Because legal experts say that one of these is legal and one isn't.
Now the
You know
legal
which is
experts,
which?
y'all. Now the legal experts.
Yes. People who go to law school should be the authorities on the law, maybe. I know this is maybe hard for people in MAGA to understand, that people that
I'm the
dedicate their life.
authority on the law. I'm the authority on the law,
That's the
Adam.
MAGA philosophy, honestly, is that Trump just says, I am the law. Whatever I say goes, right?
No, that's not true. That's not the. I was joking with you.
I know you were joking, but when Trump says that, he means it.
He's never said that.
And again, like, if I take your premise, I'm granting your premise these are horrible people, it just does not make sense not to indict them. That's what the Coast Guard has always done. This is a complete 180 in policy that makes absolutely
The
no
Coast
sense.
Guard would do that.
And
12 miles, 12 nautical
we are
miles
losing
in territorial waters.
if these
They were not in
people-
territorial waters.
Hold on. People that are actually coming to the U.S. mainland with drugs were apprehended by Coast Guard. These people in these boats don't even
because
pose.
they were within 12.
They don't
were
even
within
pose an
12
imminent threat.
nautical miles. They
don't
were in
even-
territorial waters, Adam.
They don't even pose an imminent threat. They don't have enough fuel to make it to the U.S. in one trip. The one that was just bombed with the double tap strike was heading to Suriname.
Do you know that we have? Do you know that we have territories along the Lesser Antilles? Do you know that
This is just a non sequitur.
a narco president doesn't mean that they're only trafficking out from Venezuela to the United States, but is handling logistics all over the world so they could have meeting points to, at the end of the day, the world's biggest consumer of this candy is America? Do you know that? So you playing disingenuous, like, oh, that's small boat, it can't reach America, doesn't speak to the point that we're not the ultimate target, and that this Venezuela guy, no word, be happy guy, is not an actual dictator narco trafficker. Oh, don't shrug your face. He's dancing. He's pretending
Maduro?
like he doesn't abuse it. Oh, yeah, Maduro.
I'm
Nicolás Maduro.
not a fan of him. I don't know where that
You
came
love
from.
him. You love him. You guys love narco traffickers
No,
now.
we just like rule of law and actually doing things that are smart when it comes to law enforcement. If this is such a robust drug trafficking ring that you claim it is, why not plant informants? Why not actually interrogate these people and search their phones and ask them, what routes do you take? Hey, we're going to send
know
you
that
back.
we
You go
can
undercover.
investigate-
Why are we blowing up our sources and our evidence if this is even
yeah,
true?
because you got Adam. We've started this investigation during the first Trump administration. It kept going through the Biden administration. Biden didn't stop the investigation, and actually a lot of the conclusions that Trump is going by are the conclusions under the Biden
You
administration.
haven't presented
The
any
$50 million
evidence for any claims you've made.
Do you this $50 million? What do you mean? Do I need proof to tell you that the Biden administration went through with the investigation
Which investigation?
against Maduro?
For what?
You trolling me, bro, for drug trafficking, man.
And
What
that
are you
relates
talking about?
specifically to these small fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela. How?
Yeah.
I said how.
Are you? Because logistics, they're meeting points. They're
No logistics here, dude. They're
trafficking.
blowing up these boats. There's nothing logistical about
You
that.
know what logistics mean? That's when somebody plans out the routes and the meeting points
Yeah.
and
And
arranges.
if there were sound logistics here, they would use it as an
Yeah.
intelligence gathering opportunity and an indictment opportunity to make an example of
Yeah,
these
the
people. You're going
intelligence
to jail.
gathering was done for the last 12 years.
And
The
someone just
intelligence
brought up a
gathering.
great point in the chat. Hasn't Trump said this is for oil? Hasn't he just admitted that outright?
No.
No, he hasn't.
Because it's not for oil. At the end of the day, a regime change can only mean we have access to business deals. He said that we're keeping the oil that we took from those boats we seized, and we're keeping the ships. But knocking Maduro down is not strictly for oil, right?
Strictly?
It is because he's a dictator. No, it's not strictly for oil.
Okay.
Are there benefits? Are there fuel benefits and mineral deposit benefits to it? Yes. That doesn't mean that that's the sole reason.
Let me just get this straight, right? Tell me if you've heard this before. A Republican president tells us that these terrorists pose a massive threat to us
Bush.
because they have weapons of mass destruction known as drugs, and we have to go there to seize back critical oil assets.
Yes, Bush, bro. Yes, Bush. Yes.
And Trump. Same exact script. Pretty lazy, he just recycled it. He even calls the drugs weapons of mass destruction, right? We're seizing oil
Look, they are
tankers.
weapons
Why are
of
we
mass
seizing oil
destruction.
tankers, by the way? Are there terrorists
Because
on there
we
as
need
well?
We need Maduro to disappear to Russia. That's what we need him to do.
So you are in favor of regime change, to be clear.
He is not a good person.
I'm not. I don't think he's a good person. I agree he's a horrible dictator, but are you in favor of
So
regime
why
change?
should he keep abusing his people?
No one said he should. The question is, what is the United States' role in geopolitics?
The only way to stop a dictator is for the population to shed its blood and his people, or for another nation to come in and help them.
So then, can
and
you
the people
just
are
say
not willing
outright
to die
that
for
you
the
want
regime
regime
change. Hold on, the people in the nation want a regime change, sir.
That's not what I'm asking.
He's
you.
not democratically elected.
I understand that. Do
There's
you
a
want
democratically elected leader that America is backing.
Do you want the United States to do regime change in Venezuela?
I think the United States should do what's best to protect the United States and two birds, one stone.
It's a simple question.
Get this dude from abusing. Yes,
Yes, we should do regime change in Venezuela,
Maduro should get out of there.
which would be regime change.
Maduro should get out of there. Yes, I said yes, bro.
Okay, great. So we just have a difference in values there. I don't think this makes any sense whatsoever in regards to having an actual coherent policy on stopping drugs coming into the country, most of which are coming in through legal ports of entry by citizens.
For sure. We're
So isn't it a
handling
little
those.
bit weird that they claim this is about fighting crime and fighting drug trafficking, but then Trump pardons a notorious drug trafficker from Honduras?
I
And then
agree
he
that
defunds law enforcement agencies to put all the money into ICE?
I agree that the pardon to the Honduran president, I'm not informed on the Honduran president
That's
on what
fine.
he did. I didn't like that. I'm not educated on what happened
I'm
with
saying that
Biden
calls into
administration.
question the stated motive for why these strikes are taking place, because it contradicts
Yeah.
other things the administration is doing. If this was really about law enforcement and fighting drug trafficking, they wouldn't be moving DEA agents into ICE just to go after undocumented immigrants instead of going after actual drug trafficking, which the DEA does. So if this was being paired with an actual all-out approach, attacking crime and attacking drugs coming into the country, then I'd say still horrible, but it's cohesive. This is chaotic. There's no cohesion here. You're saying logistics. Logistically, it's incoherent. It's incompetent.
Well, listen, I will say this. I don't like the pardoning of the Honduran president. He says that he was treated unfairly, meaning he doesn't believe that he was actually trafficking the stuff. But I'm not going to speak on that right there. I'm not educated. I know that his focus is to stop the influx of this chemical into our nation, whether he imposes tariffs under the economic powers or he goes into direct conflict with somebody who's distributing it.
The tariffs are illegal also, but
The tariffs are going to be deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court and uphold the appellate court's decision that the Court of International Trade ruled on per curiam.
I agree.
So, but I understand why the tariffs are going to be deemed unconstitutional, but I appreciate the guests. Thank you, Mario. I appreciate everybody. But I agree that the tariffs are going to be deemed unconstitutional and why the courts are going to do it. But I also understand the president's visions on why he imposed them under the economic
What is the
powers.
president's vision?
The president's vision is to cripple the economy of peoples that are working, nations that are working in concert to traffic this candy. So China is exporting precursor chemicals to Central America, South American nations, knowing what they're doing. And then Mexico and Canada is facilitating the entry by looking the other way, since it's not a pertinent issue of their nation.
When you destabilize someone else's economy, are they more or less likely to engage in criminal behavior?
They're more likely.
So why would we want to fight criminal behavior by further destabilizing the economic
We
situation?
got to
of these
show
countries?
them that if you keep being a detriment to our nation, we're going to be a detriment to yours.
That's a very vague principle. What does that mean in practice?
That means if you don't stop doing this, we're going to cripple another sector of your economy. We're going to slow down your exports into the biggest consumer of the world, and that's America, man.
How is this not collective punishment?
What do you mean collective punishment?
You're
If
saying
people-
because
if-
some criminals come from certain countries, that entire country's economy should pay the price as a result, rather than us just maybe
First and
arresting
foremost-
those specific criminals and indicting those specific
First and
criminals?
foremost, these broad criminal organizations are protected by the government. This is the CCP. The Chinese Communist Party can stop anything they want to because they have control in these companies. The fact that these things are still being exported shows that China's looking the other way, and Mexico's notorious for having the cartel being part of their economy. All right. So for you to say that the government is just
pro-cartel.
real naive and they just have a couple bad apples in their nations is fucking disingenuous, bro.
It's disingenuous to say there's like these countries are systemically criminal. Everyone that comes from
They
there
are
is a criminal.
it's within the government system, sir.
Well, I mean, that's the same case here, though. So would you apply that same logic to the
We're
United
not a-
States when we have a criminal government here as well? Would
All
you
right,
want
so
other countries to do that
you
to
can
us?
say that the government of America has interfered in other governments around the world, especially in the Western Hemisphere, but that doesn't equate to the governments of other nations being a detriment to the citizens of our nation, bro. And that's that's apples to oranges.
What did you even just say? Repeat that.
Okay, so the government of our nation has been a detriment, I guess a bully to other governments, right? But these other governments are a detriment to the citizens.
When we put
of
sanctions
America.
on other countries, the citizens bear the brunt of that. It's not the elites and the people in the government.
But it's for the government to make the appropriate decisions to shield their citizens from that, as opposed to America taking the steps to shield our citizens from these nations.
Why would an authoritarian government shield its citizens from sanctions rather than just profiting itself and letting the citizens suffer?
They're terrible governments, and
This
ours
just seems like a
is not the best-
toddler's
it's not the best, but
conception
it's not
of
the
law
worst.
enforcement, where it's like we have to go blow up the bad guys, haha, victory. It's like it's not nuanced in any way. It doesn't take into account intelligence gathering. The point of indictments, again, why are we not indicting these people? Why are we blowing them up? That makes no sense.
We don't need to.
Because
just
you
don't
admitted
follow the
yourself that at least
Constitution.
one of these people, at least one of them, we don't know how many, at least one of them shouldn't have
we
been
know.
there. That's the type of thing you can clear up when someone's
One.
indicted. That guy would still be alive today if they just indicted them all or arrested them all,
One.
right?
How are we gonna arrest somebody in another nation's waters, bro?
If they're
Or
coming,
international waters?
if they're coming here, which is the claim, then we can wait till they enter our waters and arrest them, which is what the Coast Guard has always done. Why change that?
First of all, it was never clear. It was never clear, Marty. Thank you. It was never ever clear that they were coming directly here. We're talking logistics. That's why I told you that DR actually found C. Kane off the coast of in their waters, off of one of the boats that got bombed.
Okay.
You never spoke to that.
This just doesn't address my point.
Of course, it doesn't. It embarrasses you.
Why are we not
Because
just
you want to
enforcing the
angelify
law?
all of these people.
I'm not
You
trying
wanna
to
use- hold on,
angelify.
you
I
wanna
just
use
want
this
due
one
process.
fisherman.
I just want due process.
You want to angelify the whole of these drug traffickers by using this one fisherman, this outlier situation, as if this is not an ongoing 12-year 10-year
I
investigation.
just want due process.
No, you just want to waste money so you can cry because you hate everything that Trump does, even at the defense of
No,
kid
I
rapers
just
and
love.
unalivers and senior citizen unalivers.
No, I want criminals to be punished. We have a process for that, which is due process, which is what we should be abiding by because it's more effective in actually building
Due
consensus.
process is for people on American soil.
And if someone's coming here to commit a crime in America, can they not be indicted and given criminal due process in a court of law?
No, we don't need to do that. We just need to not get him off. He said it. No, we don't need to declare
Do
war.
you
We're just
believe
gonna
in this
chaos
more
the
broadly?
dilemma.
That we should blow people up instead of arresting them? Is this like a broad belief you have on law enforcement or just those people?
Just this situation right now that has been investigated and focused on for the
What about
past
all
10
the
years.
trucks that come through ports of entry that have, they have carpets rolled up with drugs in them? Should we blow up those trucks as well before they get here?
Now they're in the port of entry. They're within
On their way here,
America's
as they're
jurisdiction.
passing through Mexican highway, should we bomb those trucks as well?
No, because now we're in a land that it could be declared war. These are international waters.
Could it not be considered that we're inching towards war, what we're doing with Venezuela right now? Which I guess you're in
International-
favor of, actually,
you're
because you
kinda
said you want
pivoting.
regime change, so I guess we have an answer to that question.
Yeah, you're pivoting out of that because your example didn't make sense.
Same
In
subject.
international waters, it's not the same thing. Same subject doesn't make it an equal analogy.
The analogy is when drugs are on their way here, before they make it to U.S. territory, should we be blowing those drugs up?
No,
Rather than
because that's
waiting to
another
seize
nation.
them.
We're encroaching on another nation on sovereignty if we're doing it on their land.
No, but
International
I'm even
waters.
just asking from the logistical perspective of the United States. Why not just wait to seize these drugs and these people when they get to the country and you've caught them red-handed?
Because we need to make
What's
it
wrong with
clear
that
that
approach?
What's wrong with that approach is that it's too time consuming and it doesn't stop the influx. It doesn't decentivize these people from coming directly into our country to abuse our vulnerable people.
Well, the only way to
Our vulnerable
disincentivize
citizens.
that is to actually eliminate the demand for those drugs. That's a different story. That's a different
And
question.
how do you do that? How do you do that, sir?
Mental health investment probably is like one of the big ones. Addiction centers, expanding prevalence of those. Right? I mean, people would not be bringing drugs here if people here didn't want the drugs, right? So this is a multi-pronged problem here.
Oh, so
when
this
we're
is
talking
victim
about
blaming
attacking
now.
supply. No, we're
That's
talking about
victim blaming.
supply and demand.
Is that not victim blaming, sir?
If someone's a victim of drug addiction, I feel like they should get help. How's that blaming them? You don't think they should get help, and the public sector should help facilitate that? That's
Say
the
that
actual
again?
core issue here.
Say that again?
Shouldn't the public sector try to help people with drug addiction such that they no longer have a demand for those drugs, which is actually going to hurt the cartels way worse than
Listen,
bombing
it's not.
random
It,
boats?
it's mostly the focus on healing people that are already sick from this is one pertinent issue that we have to deal with separately from the influx. The influx is going to stop new people from being vulnerable to this. That's what you guys don't get. Hey, the people that are sick, but maybe we can stop creating new crackheads. How about that?
I don't disagree. I want to stop the supply of drugs. I'm just saying blowing up the boats is just a stupid, childish way to do it.
Blow them shits up, man. Those people was murderers,
when
man.
When it's paired with things like the FBI and the DEA being defunded, I start to wonder,
Keep going back to that. You want to sing that song so bad, Adam.
Yeah, because if you're going to make the argument this is about actually stopping the flow of drugs into the country, you'd assume that they would have a multi-pronged approach to that. But it seems like their only way to address drugs coming into the country is blowing up random fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela, rather than maybe increasing funding for the DEA, increasing access to mental health care, actually having stronger security at ports of entry that can sense things like fentanyl. Why are we attacking these problems when they're so far away before we even know for sure what's going on? Because clearly the intelligence can't be that good.
You don't address the fact that we actually found D-Rugs in one of the boats.
I'm not disputing that.
So then why are you defending like that? Every time I highlight that, you said, well, we got to give them due process. It's international waters. We don't got to do that. We're a sovereign nation. The UN can't say what we did is illegal.
Because I think when someone commits a crime, they should go to court for that crime. And then if there's someone like that one person who was just a fisherman, they will be found not guilty. That's why due process is important. If even 5% of these boats are innocent people, the whole purpose of due process is to ensure that only the 95% who are actually criminals are facing consequences, and that they're facing consequences that are commensurate to the crime, not just death penalty for everyone.
We fundamentally disagree on that. We're talking in circles at this point.
I can see that much.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
We can go a little bit off that topic. Do you disagree that the Trump administration is like a criminal organization right now, which is in many ways acting the same way as some of these other governments you seem to hate so much?
I can't say I agree 100% with everything the administration is doing just to be able to be an op up here, to be mad.
Sure, I'm talking specifically about like the corruption
so you
schemes.
You got to specify.
The corruption schemes. The criminal corruption schemes.
What criminal corruption schemes?
Selling pardons for like $2 billion a piece, for example, like the CZ, the Binance CEO, who was pardoned right after Binance decided to buy $2 billion of USD1 Trump coin from World Liberty Financial. I mean, there's very, very clear... the Trump administration is profiting to the tune of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. Trump's net worth has almost doubled in less than a year because of investment opportunities that have opened up for his family. You had the president of Indonesia talking to Trump on hot mic that was caught on the mic saying, hey, I'm trying to negotiate a business deal with Eric. Can you have him call me back, please? So this fusion of personal financial interest and governmental power is part of the reason I also don't believe these boat strikes are being done for altruistic reasons. This is all being done to perform for MAGA. MAGA loves seeing, we blew up the Latino boats. They love seeing that. And then, meanwhile, they're just enriching themselves in the background. It's all a grift. It's all a show to distract Trump supporters, make them super excited. We're blowing up the Latinos. And then secretly, they're rinsing your pockets. They're robbing the country. They're looting Washington, D.C.
I know that I'm not fully educated on all the business deals that the Trump family has been closing behind closed doors. I know that the abuse of power, if they are abusing it, isn't exclusive to this administration.
It is.
We know that Hunter Biden made a lot of money using the
not at all comparable, though.
Not at all comparable.
Was Hunter Biden working for any government position when he was working at Burisma as well? Was he in the government?
Are any of Trump's children working at a government position?
No, but Trump is.
Okay, but Biden was.
No, but Trump is profiting. Did Biden profit? Did Joe Biden profit from Hunter Biden?
Yeah.
That's not true. Republicans spent 2 years trying to find an indictment here. They couldn't get anything.
They actually, Robert Hur found that he was liable for some of the stuff, but called him an innocent old man. What? That was something else? What was that pertaining?
Hunter Biden indictments were on gun charges. I'm talking about Burisma, the entire corruption scandal that people allege against Hunter Biden. The DOJ charges against Hunter Biden were completely
trying to highlight the image they have of him, this innocent old man who couldn't have been part of anything because he's just like such a nice guy. When at the end of the day, so then I'm going to ask you for evidence that Trump is getting exclusively enriched
Sure.
Because
The Trump organization with the Witkoffs launched a company called World Liberty Financial. World Liberty Financial launched a stablecoin called USD1, which no one was using. It was a bullshit stablecoin that no one used. But then all of a sudden, Binance starts reaching out to the Trump
you actually
organization.
don't have evidence that money went into the president's pocket.
I have
You don't.
evidence that
Trump is
World
a big
Liberty
organization,
Financial,
a big name that doesn't have to include
World
the president
Liberty
himself.
Financial is owned by the Trump family, and Trump did not divest from
You
any.
just said-
Trump did not
you just
divest
said
from
what
any
I
of this
said.
stuff.
You just said what I said.
Not at all.
You just said what I said.
Trump
that
did
it's a
not
Trump
divest when the
organization.
Trump organization profits. Donald Trump profits. He has access to those bank accounts. Did Joe Biden have access to Hunter Biden's bank account when he was working at Burisma? And again, if this
We
was
don't
so
know
corrupt,
that because this.
why didn't Republicans
We don't
find
know that
anything?
because Biden didn't have that hyper focus on them the way y'all are hyper focusing on the president. Y'all don't know that.
Because we
y'all
have
don't know.
not seen corruption
Y'all
like
don't
this
know
in
the
modern
company
American
that could have
history.
been. Y'all don't know the company that Biden could have used to get money out there because it wasn't named after his family. So you're just picking at straws over here, making it seem like this is an exclusive thing to Trump.
It is.
Where Biden could have been a corporate, where Obama could have been a corporate to all of this. Hold on, didn't Praz just get arrested 50 years in a scheme?
Who?
I'm not arrested. He got sentenced to like 20 something years in a scheme that included the Obama campaign.
Who?
Praz from the refugees. Praz,
I don't know who that is.
you don't know you don't know who the refugees are?
Which all the refugees ever? Who are you referring to?
No, the group, the refugees, man.
No, I'm not
The
familiar.
The Fugees.
Not familiar. Can we not change the topic though?
You're not. So I'm not changing the topic. You don't know who Wyclef Jean is. You don't know who Lauryn Hill is, and you don't know who Praz is.
I know who Lauren.
You
Hill
never
is.
heard "Killing Me
Singer?
Softly"?
I know who Lauren Hill is.
Yeah, Praz actually just got
Okay.
sentenced to 20, 30 years in a scheme that included the Obama campaign and
Good.
millions of
Anyone who
dollars.
does corruption should face consequences.
But you're making it seem like corruption is, or corruption, quote unquote, is exclusive to the Trump campaign.
This type of
where-
corruption is very exclusive to the Trump campaign.
No.
Dude,
Not at
he's
all.
made billions of dollars from the presidency. Who else has done that? His net worth has doubled in less than a year.
How do you know his net worth?
Forbes?
Forbes be guessing. They don't know.
They don't only be. They make an educated guess based on the assets he owns
But,
publicly.
but now it's an educated guess. They don't know, bro.
Yeah,
They're-
it's an
they're a-
educated guess
they're
for
an
when the
entertainment
market
magazine.
cap for World Liberty
They're not
Financial
serious journalists.
when the market cap for World Liberty Financial stablecoin goes from 100 million to 2 billion because of one sus deal, that's not an assumption. It's in front of our eyes. You can look up the chart that shows this. And Trump was asked, he was given an opportunity on 60 Minutes, sir, many people are alleging that your pardon of CZ was corrupt. What do you say to that? You know what Trump responded?
What?
He said, are you ready? I don't know who he is. I just heard it was a Biden witch hunt. He's mentally not there. He has the brain of a toddler, and his family is using him to enrich themselves. That's what's happening.
He is aggressively trying to undo everything Biden did, even if some things may be good. I could disagree with a couple of things that I said. It's not a perfect administration, right? But nothing's perfect except Jesus
Not
Christ.
perfect is a really loose and weak word to use for something this explicitly malicious.
But he's doing great.
Where?
Like generally.
The economy is
What do you mean?
suffering, an authoritarian
The
takeover is
economy
happening.
just grew. What are you talking about? The report dropped this morning that it grew.
Are you aware that literally in terms of prices right now, there's supposed to be a disinflationary trend? The price of services is going down. What's going up, though? The price of goods because of the tariffs. And Jerome Powell just said this like last week.
First and foremost, at the end of the day, 3.0 CPI is just fine. We don't expect prices to go into a deflation because we still want consumer confidence.
Disinflation.
So, hold on. Listen
Not
to
deflation.
me. No, disinflation. Disinflation, there's a lot of things going down. The 3.0 that we see in the last, hold on, the 3.0 we see in the last CPI, not the 2.7 CPI, the one before that. We see that the fuel sector went up significantly and everything went up, went down in inflation moderately. And the fuel sector went up because of variables outside of the nation. The Ukraine bombed two oil
When we
refineries.
look at inflation, we're looking at goods inflation and services inflation. And a lot of these trends are influenced not by presidential policy, but by macroeconomic indicators. And the macroeconomic indicators right now should be trending us towards disinflation, which is what we're seeing when it comes to services. But the inflation of goods is bucking that trend specifically because of the tariffs. And we have ample evidence of this. The trend line for inflation started going up again under Trump. You can't just look at the nominal number, you have to look at the trend. It's trending upwards. When you pull up a graph of services inflation versus goods inflation, the lines are moving in opposite directions because of the tariffs.
Sir, some tariffs I can say have affected some non-essential items. But that doesn't mean that the overall prices of everything are surging out of control because Trump is doing so fucking bad. All right?
I don't think you're
Stop
understanding my
painting
argument.
it that way. We got we were at 2.8 when we came into the administration. We went down to like, I think 2.3, 2.4. We went up to 2.7 for 2 consecutive months in the summer, and apparel and fuel were the ones that were affected. Both that can be attributed to summer demand. Then we got 2.9 that September, and then we got 3.0. And the highest affected sector is the fuel oil sector, which was affected by the bombing of 2 oil refineries of Russia, the pending sanctions in Iran due to the enriching uranium debacle, and the war in Venezuela to make sure that we take this narco trafficker
There's
out.
a very
But we
simple
see
question
his domestic.
here to make
Hold on,
everything
we see
clear.
his domestic. I got 2 more lines. We see this domestic. We see his domestic oil policies actually balancing that out. If Kamala would have been president, we would have seen 7% CPI right now. Something disgusting.
Just not true. I'm going to
That's
ask you,
disgusting.
if Trump hadn't done these tariffs, would prices be lower on average in the United States?
No, I don't believe so. I think they would have been the same.
That's just objectively not true. I mean, we have experts of the Federal Reserve telling us otherwise. I mean, maybe you don't
I'm a
trust
bigger
experts.
expert. I'm smarter than them.
Okay, so you have to resort to trolling to respond to that. That's fine. Jerome
I'm
Powell.
not trolling because they said I'm not trolling
You're a bigger
because they
expert than
said
Jerome Powell?
Yeah, they said that the big 3 that tariffs on our 3 biggest trading partners were going to destroy America. When these were imposed by March 4th, by the middle by the summer, they were saying no, the 3 biggest trading partners doing nothing. It's the reciprocal day tariffs, just shifting the goalpost. At the end of the day, the only ones that I could say are actually inflationary are the automotive sector tariffs that went in on April 2nd and the copper tariffs that went in on August 1st. After that, we chilling, bro.
There's a lot of goalpost shifting happening with these tariffs. Trump is the one doing it, not the people that oppose the tariffs. When this first started, everyone swore to me, listen, silly lib, he's not actually going to do the tariffs. He's just
That was a
saying
good
that
name
to
for you.
scare people.
Silly
But then
lib
he
is a good
actually
name.
does do the tariffs, and now it's a really smart negotiating tactic. Okay, what did we get from this negotiating tactic? Trump puts a tariff on the EU, for example. Then he goes to the EU to negotiate a trade deal. What's the trade deal he negotiates? He says the EU has promised us $600 billion upfront investment, down payment. Oh, wow, $600 billion. Where's that coming from? Oh, nowhere? They just said, oh, thoughts and prayers go out to the U.S. We'd love to hypothetically, maybe in the future, invest $600 billion in the U.S., but there's no actual binding guarantees here. The only concessions that Trump has gotten from these tariffs are shiny trinkets, like the Swiss Golden Bar, or the crown from South Korea, or the FIFA Peace Prize, whatever it is. All Trump is concerned with is people glazing him and giving him shiny things. His economic policy, his foreign policy, all of his domestic policy is incoherent, and it is only centered around his own narcissistic ambitions and enriching people that he knows. That is it. It is really that simple.
So we got new sectors opened up in most of these nations. Right now, we know that by sheer volume, no tariff on them to us can have us dominate their domestic industry, right? But opening up new sectors in each nation can equalize the trade imbalance without us imposing ourselves on every
What does
single
that have to do with
nation.
what Trump has done?
Because I said Trump has gotten more than just the trinkets and the stuff. He's gotten new sectors being open to trade
Where?
to Americans. In the EU, we got more cars. There's a bunch of stuff that I got to pull up. They actually announced it.
A lot of these
China.
investments are just a lie. They're not real. They're not binding. They
What
just
do you
say
mean
it to
they're
Trump.
a lie?
Like,
Now
for
you're just
example,
casting doubt off
no,
of the evidence,
no.
broski.
Qatar-
You're bugging out. You're
listen,
worse than Parker.
You're just wrong. Qatar
You
literally
cornier than Parker,
hold on.
bro.
Qatar literally promised supposedly an investment into the U.S., but the amount they promised is 600% of their GDP. Do you think that that's real? Do you think Qatar is going to invest 6 times the country's entire fucking GDP just because Trump posted on Truth Social about a tariff? Do you seriously believe that?
Say that again.
Do you seriously believe that Qatar is going to invest 6 times their own GDP into the United States just because of Trump's tariffs?
What was the claim that he made?
The claim that Donald Trump made is that he secured massive investment from Qatar into the United States in a big economic deal. But the amount that Qatar claimed they're investing into the United States is 600% of their GDP. How is that even possible?
But because it's
flattery.
Not an
They're glazing him.
It's not an up from the man when they say that they invested this money, sir. It doesn't mean that they're handing America a check. It means that they're going
Trump
to build something that will ultimately cost that much over a long period of time.
So you are smarter than
That doesn't
Donald
mean
Trump,
that they're
because
writing
Donald
a
Trump thinks we are just
$600
getting...
billion check. Hold up, broski. That they're writing a 600. You know how investment works into America? They're going to invest in America. They're going to build buildings and move stuff to this country and start building here, employ people and build roads around their area and clean up the area that they decide to get leases in. It's investment into America. Stop making it seem like Gunther's just going to sign a check to America and say, Donald Trump, here, you orange and handsome. That's not how it works.
Well, that's how Trump thinks it works, so at least you've
No, that's
confirmed
not how
you're
Trump
smarter
thinks it
than...
works. That's what you're interpreting into his tweet.
Dude, Trump literally said the EU gave him a down payment of how much was it? He said the EU gave him a down payment of $600 billion to do whatever the U.S. wants with that money. That money isn't even real. That money is not even real.
Can you show me that tweet on the screen right now?
Sure. I can pull it up for you.
He said they gave a down payment? Mm-hmm. He too New York City, man. You got to forgive him. You got to forgive the New Yorker.
He's cognitively
You know I walk
declining.
around, you know I go around this app calling myself the greatest of all time.
Trump
Do you
in the
think I'm
case of the
greatest all time?
non-existent $600 billion
That's just what we
EU
say,
gift.
bro. Listen, it's just what we say.
What?
I go around this app saying I'm the greatest of all time. Do you think I'm the greatest of all time?
No, but you're
I'm
not the
just a
fucking
dude.
president of the United States, so I hold you to a little bit of a lower standard than Donald
But I
Trump.
voted for New York City to be the president of the United States. This is what comes with New York City being the president of the United States, sir.
You don't have to
Hey,
shit on New
what
York
up,
like
man?
that.
Whoa, I ain't shitting on New York. What are you talking about?
You're saying
We're better than you.
Donald Trump is... I love New York, but Donald Trump is not a great representation of New York.
He's exactly New York, believe it or not.
Maybe not the most flattering light to present New York in if you think that Donald Trump is some amazing...
People don't like us, bro. People don't like us.
People love New York.
People love the city. People don't like New Yorkers like that.
I like Mamdani. I'm sure you hate him.
That's disgusting, bro. That's disgusting. Your mic
Really?
must smell like shit after saying that.
Really? Supporting
Yeah.
Trump is not disgusting, but if I like Mamdani, that's disgusting.
Yeah, you kind of look like him too. He pissing me off.
Yeah, I've gotten that a lot because I'm brown and I have a beard and I smile sometimes. So I guess that's the only things we have in common, which people like to point out. Real quick, Gracie, thank you so much for the $10 on Cash App. It's detrimental and POC condones racism. Thanks. Thank you to Sierra for the $10 on PayPal. I appreciate that as well. I just want to clarify.
Yo, real quick, make me a mod, bro. Make me a mod.
Why?
I'd be a good mod. I'll mod you on my live. I get 5 viewers.
I don't know, man. I'm not liking a lot of the stuff you're saying. I appreciate that you kind of keep your cool in between topics and it doesn't just keep going, escalating in terms of us screaming at each other, but it seems like you are just working backwards from defending Trump in all these situations.
A little bit of entertainment, bro. It's a little bit of entertainment. You know what I'm saying? People
Right, but I don't think it's entertaining when the Trump administration is engaging in like criminal corruption and authoritarianism on such a mass scale. I mean, this is an existential threat to the United States.
Say that again?
I don't think it's very entertaining when the Trump administration is engaging in criminal levels of corruption and authoritarianism, which pose an existential threat to the United States.
Oh, you're kind of restarting the argument there. But what were we talking about before you rudely interrupted yourself?
You were talking about Donald Trump is just New York. That's why he speaks like this. I pulled up specifically where he said it was a $600 billion gift, which is not true.
Who said it's not true? The Gunther said it's not true?
No, this is referring to the EU, not Qatar.
Or the EU handed over a check?
Trump claimed they handed over a check, but all it ended up being was the EU leadership saying, in an ideal situation, we would love for our private sector to hypothetically invest $600 billion, but they can't even compel the private sector to do that, first of all. And second of all, there was no binding agreement here. This is why I'm saying when Trump says he's getting concessions from these tariffs, the concessions are only photo ops and empty statements that have no binding agreements in them.
I don't know about that one.
You think these tariffs are actually a net positive, putting aside the legality because you agreed they're illegal, but you think they're actually a good policy?
I love them, bro. I love them with all my heart, Adam. I love these motherfucking tariffs, bro.
And you understand that American producers and consumers pay those tariffs, right?
Again, yo, this is like the argument I've had for like 8 months now.
I have to rehash it sometimes because some people don't know.
Where is the cost passed on to the consumer? Because we don't see it in the CPI. To where it's so.
Jerome Powell just gave a speech saying the reason that we're seeing goods inflation is because of the tariffs. He's the chair of the Federal Reserve.
He's still biased. That doesn't mean he's not human.
Okay, every human being is biased. Jerome Powell, though, is probably one of the better sources on this subject, no? Didn't he do a great job bringing inflation down by raising the interest rates? I mean, that was Jerome Powell that did that. We can't even give Biden or Trump credit for bringing down inflation. That was Powell.
What do you mean? Powell lowered the rates recently.
Recently, because inflation came back under control towards the end of Biden's term, but he raised the rates to combat inflation, and he's one of the main reasons inflation came down.
During Biden's mistake?
What was Biden's mistake?
Injecting way too much money in the money supply. A bunch of shit.
Biden's stimulus sped up our jobs recovery by 2 years.
It also caused inflation to go up to 9.2.
Sure, anytime you do stimulus, you have to choose between either you're going to have higher inflation or you're going to have a slow jobs recovery. And one thing that pisses me off is that it seems like certain people on the right, they just want to complain for the sake of complaining because under Barack Obama, we had a much smaller stimulus package. And the criticism he got is, why is the jobs recovery under Obama so slow? But what no one talked about under Obama is that the inflation rate was pretty low. Then Biden does the other version. No, you just did stimulus. Stimulus can mean tax cuts. It can mean fiscal spending. It can mean stimulus checks. It just means after a recession.
What did Obama do with any of them? He bailed out the corporations, as I remember. That's it.
Well, they had to pay us back for most of that. The U.S. government actually profited on some of those bailouts because we took stakes in those companies.
Oh, socialists. Yeah.
I mean, like Trump, right? Took a 10% stake in Intel by misappropriating congressionally allocated.
Yeah, that shit is disgusting. It's disgusting.
Is that authoritarian?
No, it's pretty socialist, and I don't like it.
I don't have an issue with taking a 10% stake in Intel. I have an issue with him using money that was supposed to be allocated for something else by Congress and then using it to have private negotiations with Intel to take the stake in Intel. That seems very shady to me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that at all. I don't like everything he's doing.
It's just kind of crazy to me that Republicans spent so long telling me Democrats are going to come in, they're going to socialize the means of production, they're going to be authoritarians, and the only one doing stuff like that is Donald Trump. And Biden didn't do anything like that. And again, the U.S. fared better than every other G7 country in terms of returning back to our pre-COVID economic stats, thanks to the American Rescue Plan. Now, it is true, the American Rescue Plan did marginally bump up inflation, but the majority of the inflation came from supply chain issues. And if we hadn't done the American Rescue Plan, then it would have taken us until 2024 to reach pre-pandemic employment levels. And we sped up by 2 years the jobs recovery. I think it's a good trade-off.
I don't think it was the check solely that sped that up.
And there's multiple factors. There's the stimulus checks. Yeah. There's the stimulus for businesses. There's the supply chain issues. There's demand coming back after lockdowns ended. There's a whole host of issues.
And I don't think it was supply chains issues that caused inflation, by the way.
That was like the primary reason.
Were way earlier. Supply chains issues were way earlier by the time 2022 came around. But
we had serious supply chain issues in 2022. It was 2023 when they started opening up a little bit more, and maybe towards the end of 2022. But Biden definitely came in to an economy that had supply chain issues.
We didn't have supply chains issues in 2022.
So you're saying supply chain issues ended in 2021 and that was it?
No, I'm just saying supply chain issues didn't affect inflation in 2022. It wasn't significant for it to affect our inflation.
Where are you getting this from? I've never...
Where are you getting it from? You made the positive claim, buddy.
Jerome Powell, again, the Federal Reserve...
Oh my
This is like
God,
I'm
bro.
sorry, the Federal Reserve
Bro,
is like,
is that your superhero?
the Federal Reserve is one of the best sources for economics in this country. I mean, yeah. It seems like you have an issue with experts. You laughed earlier at legal experts. Now you're laughing at economics experts. And this is the Trump thing. Is like, who cares about
They've all
expertise?
been wrong.
Huh?
Because they've all been wrong. I've been debating for how long. Every time y'all say this, time passes,
What have
and
they
those
been wrong
people
about?
that you are appealing to are wrong. I already gave you an example. You guys said that the tariffs on our three biggest trading partners are going to be crippling. When you saw that it wasn't, you moved the goalpost to the April 2nd tariffs.
Which
The
specific
reciprocal
tariffs are
tariff.
you referring to? Because Trump has changed the tariff rates more times than I can count.
No, he imposed 10% on China at the top of February, and then moved to 25% on Mexico and Canada on March 4th, and then he raised the China tariffs to 30% to 25% on March 4th, and then he did the auto quota tariff to China because they started popping shit, but he never like backed up or changed the tariff or ignored it completely when.
Dude,
When
the
he
highest
decided
tariff
to
rate we put on
exempt
China
commodity,
was literally
I got two
over
more lines.
100%.
I just called it the out of quarter tariff when China started acting up. I just said that. So at the end of the day, Trump had some commodity that was exempt from tariffs from being subject to subheading.
He
if
made
they
that
were-
change afterwards because the initial tariff rollout was a disaster and a failure, right?
No.
So you're saying,
No,
no,
you guys
Trump
imposed
announced
the
the
idea of-
tariffs and you guys complained and then you shifted the goalpost. No, Trump changed
No.
the tariff rates because the
No,
bond
no.
markets were acting up.
You guys imposed an idea on him by blanket tariffs. So when he did not do what you guys said he was going to do, you guys called him a chicken. When in reality, he announced tariff to this nation, but didn't say nothing about blanket or universal. That was a media term y'all made up.
What were the Liberation Day tariffs?
The Liberation Day tariffs were tariffs on
Were those
nations.
on specific sectors or entire countries?
Those were on exports on the nation's exports.
And again, you're wrong here. In April of 2025, Trump paused most of his tariffs because the bond market started freaking out. So Trump has
Yeah, because
constantly changed these tariff rates.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, foreign billionaires and rich people weaponized their position in our stock market and our bond market when Trump started taking their hands out of our American pockets.
Or hear me
When he
out.
started protecting Americans.
Or hear me out. People in the global economy lost
Yes or
faith
no?
in the United States when we destroyed our trade relationships overnight. They're like, maybe this is not the best
No.
place to invest anymore.
No, that's not the case. They weaponized their position because they didn't like Trump's policies in protecting the American people. And you know it.
I know what?
You know that these foreign billionaires and foreign investors and some even American
I'm
rich
getting a
people
lot of
weaponize
very
their
vague
position
arguments from
in the
you.
block. It's not vague.
Throughout
It's very
this entire
specific.
conversation, I feel like you haven't given me anything of substance with evidence. It's all just been claims that you assert, which I feel like I'm going to fact check this later, and half it's not even going to be true.
Check it right now.
I've been
What did I say
referencing
that was a lie?
specific trade deals.
I highlighted specific trade deals, specific specific
your
nations,
claim-
specific exports, specific things being traded under Trump's new
Your
agreements. You're just rejecting them.
Your claim is that people shifted the goalposts on tariffs because Trump announced these tariffs. Everyone said they're a disaster, but then they weren't a disaster. The reason
No,
they weren't
everybody
a
said they're
disaster.
blanketed.
The reason they weren't a disaster
Everybody
because
said that
Trump
they're
paused them
blanketed.
and then he made them more specific. Then he factored in things like the USMCA after Liberation Day.
No, you guys interpreted into his words that they were going to be on everything. So when he didn't put it on everything, when he actually got into power to put these tariffs into place, and it wasn't exactly what y'all described, y'all said that he's pulling back. That was the issue.
Do you dispute that he put blanket tariffs?
Blanket tariff is not a thing.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Liberation
it's not in any
Day-
trade policy.
Liberation Day,
And
he
it-
announced
it's
blanket
It's not in
tariffs.
Title 19 of U.S. Code, trade
No, hold on.
expansion.
The
of
tariffs are
62.
illegal. We agree the tariffs are illegal, but on Liberation Day, Trump
No,
did
blanket
announce.
tariffs are not
Trump
rule.
did announce blanket tariffs. Yes,
No, he never used that term.
he can use whatever term he wants. If you put a tariff on an entire country, I don't know what else you want to call that. on everything from the
tariff,
country.
that's it.
And then only later on does he go and negotiate, okay, this tariff rate on medical goods, this tariff rate on this. Only after he got all the blowback and all the bullshit, then in previous months, he's finally started saying, okay, let's lower the rates. Let me revoke my own tariffs on Argentinian beef and say, look at me, I lowered beef prices. He undoes a lot of his own decisions and then says, look at this, big W for Trumpism, big W for MAGA. But no, he's responding to the bond market being in turmoil because of his tariffs. And only then did he make the tariffs more targeted. And even those targeted tariffs are still having a net negative impact on this country by the accounting of every mainstream economist.
Sir, the tariffs that he took off of the recent tariffs that he took off, I think coffee and beef and some foods on some nations, I can say that was a measure that he took to protect the nation, I guess, from some inflation. But that doesn't mean that the tariffs were inherently inflationary from their first placement, which
So
is what
he
y'all said.
saved the country from his own economic policy.
How? If they weren't hurtful to begin with.
Why did he then revoke them and say that beef is now going to be cheaper? It's the issue that I have is Trump creates a lot of problems for himself to solve, and then he says, "Look how awesome I am."
Because we produce a lot of domestic beef over here, but at the end of the day, the interest rates were affecting farmers expanding their herds because they couldn't get new loans. So he lowered the tariff in response to that. And then we know that food had been stabilizing since its spike at the top of the year due to chicken and eggs being affected by the flu. So now that it's stabilizing, he's making sure that it stays stable. Not because they caused inflation and now he's taking them off to lower the
don't
inflation.
think that
because
tariffs
he fixed
raise consumer
No,
prices?
because he fixed the issue he created. No, that's not what happened. Don't make it seem that like that.
No, he literally removed tariffs on beef and other foods because he was getting pushback for rising food prices, and one of the causes
Why
of
don't you
rising food
fact check
prices
me on the interest rates
were
affecting new loans for farmers? You keep saying I don't say nothing of substance, but instead of
that's
addressing
now a
my
different
point,
topic.
you just steamroll and just repeat yourself.
Because you don't address what I say, so I have to keep making the same
I
point
literally
over and
did.
over.
You said that he lowered you said he saves us from a problem that he created. And I'm telling you, and then you used beef as an example. And I'm telling you that beef wasn't a problem he created. It was affected. The beef index went up because farmers couldn't get new loans due to interest rates being high.
That's just
All right. And then I told you that eggs and bird. You're going around it because you're sad at what I'm saying.
You're
right now. I can see it in
ignoring.
your
I'm
face.
sure that supply chain issues with farmers are one cause of inflation. So are tariffs. These are multivariate inflation problems, right?
Now there's
Are you going-
multivariate, but that was in your claim. You said that saves us from
I
an
have an
issue that he
economics
created.
degree. Every economic problem is multivariate by
I
definition.
graduated from Harvard with
I'm sure.
Obama.
Oh, for sure, I can tell. Again, I just want to understand. Do you seriously think that tariffs don't raise consumer prices?
No, they could be negotiated with the exporter.
Just explain to me the mechanics of tariffs
Or
not raising consumer
sneakflation.
prices.
Or sneakflation, where the company, the importer, slowly trickles it out, trying to follow wages.
I'm going to ask you again, what are the mechanics of why tariffs would not raise prices? Where does that increased
I just
cost
literally
go?
said they can be exported with the importer, because at the end of the day, the exporter would
That's not an
do
answer.
for the importer. Yeah, it could be negotiated, meaning the cost could be passed back to the exporter, because the exporter would do for the importer what the importer would do for the customer.
Oh, okay. I'm really glad you brought this up. So you're saying that the exporter is going to eat the cost of the tariff. So we actually
No,
have
could. No,
we
no, no,
actually
we
have
could.
the import price index, which directly contradicts what you're saying, because the import price index has remained stable under Trump's second term. If exporters were swallowing the cost of the tariffs, this would be going down. It wouldn't be staying stable.
No, if it would stay stable, because that means they're eating the tariff and the cost is staying the same from previous
I knew
administrations.
you were going to say that. I knew you were
just
going to say
literally
that.
debunked yourself, Mamdani.
I knew you were going to say that. The import price index is the cost of imports before taxes and tariffs are levied on them. So, sorry. I know you thought that was like a really cool dunk and all, but if this was being
Why would it stay
compensated,
stable?
If the import price index
Why
is
wouldn't it
stable,
go up though? Why would it stay stable? Why wouldn't it go up even without the tariff?
Why would it go up? It would stay the same, and then the tariff would be an additional cost for the importer. On top
What are
of
you
this,
talking about?
your theory is countries that export stuff to the United States are going to charge a little bit less for their exports and eat part of the cost of the tariff, whatever that part is. This directly disproves that, because if they were eating that cost, the price of imports pre-tariff would be going down.
Now, we can't speak on how hundreds of importers are doing business with hundreds of exporters. Okay? This is, what is this website that you're using here?
This is BLS.gov.
BLS, I see the side actually. Yeah, I see the side. Okay. Hold on. September it went up and then it went down.
Yep.
Let me pull this
It's been
chart.
relatively stable through Trump's
All right, so
second
so
term.
where is the spike? Where is the spike due to the tariffs?
You wouldn't see a spike due to tariffs. You would see it staying the same because tariffs aren't factored into this. Tariffs are applied after this.
So then why use this?
Because if the exporters were eating the cost of
You
the
gotta
tariff,
show me that it's getting more expensive.
if the exporters were eating the cost of the tariff, then to compensate for the tariff, they would charge less for their exports. But that's not happening.
They would charge less for their exports.
If they were
would
eating the cost of the
technically be
tariffs,
charging
which proves they're
if
not.
the tariff got more expensive, sir.
This just proves that exporters are not eating the cost of the tariff. It's producers and
listen to me,
consumers.
Adam, if the exporter is absorbing the tariff and the cost is the same, it would reflect the same on the chart, sir.
If the exporter was eating the cost of the tariff, they would be charging less for their exports to compensate
charging-
for the tariff on the importer.
Right, that's true, yeah.
If I'm an exporter and I'm selling something to someone in the US for $100 a piece, and now there's a
Yeah.
$30 tariff, what I can do to make that a little bit more sweet is say, okay, I'm going to sell it for $70 to you now. So even after you pay the tariff, it's still $100, but we're not
Right.
seeing them eating that cost. The cost is staying the same. And again, this is why Jerome Powell has said that our goods are increasing in prices. The two main reasons are mass deportations and tariffs.
It could listen, you got to understand that there's two options, all right? It can always be passed on to the consumer, but you have to understand that it could be, like I highlighted, sneakflation, to where they're trickling the cost to match the increase in wages, to where it's not just like we're just overloading the consumer and whatever company is alienating their consumer base in competition, competing with a domestic market. That's not. That's why I say you can't say how hundreds of different exporters are doing business with hundreds of different importers. You can't.
Well, you can speak about macroeconomic trends, which is how we measure these things. You can't go individual business by individual business.
Yeah.
But listen, I appreciate you hopping on. I feel like that conversation was not really heading anywhere. Yeah, I feel like that was just rage bait. That entire conversation was just rage bait. We have one more person in the guest box. I don't know if this is a friendly or not. Shrinkflation. Yeah, I think that's what he meant. I don't really understand half of the arguments that were made in that conversation. That was like the definition of never let them know your next move. And then if this person's not hopping on, then I do want to switch over to covering. I realized I lost like half of the viewers because everyone was getting so sick of watching that. Maybe I should have ended that a little bit sooner, but nonetheless, I do want to go over this recent 60 Minutes piece.
All earlier.
Because this is insane. It seems like this person is just not connecting. If you guys are enjoying the live, make sure you're double tapping the screen, by the way, following if you haven't already. And if you want to contribute to a radical leftist, lunatic, and thug like myself, then Cash App, PayPal, Venmo are on the link tree in my bio. But
This year, when the Trump administration deported hundreds of Venezuelan men to El Salvador, a country most had no connection to. The White House claimed the men were terrorists, part of a violent gang, and invoked a centuries-old wartime power, saying it allowed
to the guy with the rose emoji saying W Bretta, you can hop in the guest request if you'd like to make the same arguments, but I doubt you're going to do that.
them to deport some men immediately, without due process, an unusual strategy that sparked an ongoing legal battle. Tonight, you'll hear from some of those men. They describe torture, sexual, and physical abuse inside CICOT, one of El Salvador's harshest prisons, where they say they endured 4 months of hell. It began as soon as the planes landed. The deportees thought they were headed back to Venezuela, but then saw hundreds of Salvadoran police waiting for them on the tarmac. Shackled, they were paraded in front of cameras, pushed onto buses, and delivered to CICOT, El Salvador's notorious maximum security prison.
En el momento en que llegamos, el director del SECOT,
when we got there, the SECOT director was talking to us.
Lo principal,
the first thing he told us was that we would never see the light of day or night again.
Día ni la de la noche.
He said, "Welcome to hell. I'll make sure you never leave."
Did you think you were going to die there?
We thought we
It is so crazy to me that we just casually moved on from the fact that hundreds of people were sent here for literally no reason.
were already the living dead, honestly.
We met Luis Munoz Pinto in Colombia. He was a college student in repressive Venezuela and hoped to seek asylum in the United States. In 2024, he says he waited in Mexico until his scheduled appointment with U.S. Customs and Border Protection in California. During that interview,
they just looked at me and told me I was a danger to society.
You have no criminal record.
I never even got a traffic ticket.
Never, ever, ever let these people tell you we just want people to come in the right way. This man came to a port of entry. He followed every single rule he had to follow to seek asylum. He had no criminal record, and they sent him to a fucking concentration camp because he was Hispanic and they thought he looked intimidating. This is unreal. If you go back in time 10 years, 20 years and said, hey, this is going to happen in America, no one would believe you. Or they'd think, okay, maybe like a century from now that happens, but America's not going to devolve that quickly.
Nevertheless, he was detained by customs. He says he spent 6 months locked up in the U.S., waiting for a decision on his asylum case when he was deported.
And these places where asylum seekers have to stay while they're waiting their case to be adjudicated are disgusting. They have to sleep on hard tile floors with no sheets. They're given moldy bread, moldy food with maggots in it. The reason they do that is because they don't want these people to stick around and actually wait for their asylum case to be adjudicated. They want every asylum seeker to just leave because they've been subjected to basically torture.
One of 252 Venezuelans sent to CICOT between March and April. Inside, he says their hands and feet were tied. Forced to their knees, their heads were shaved.
There was blood everywhere, screams, people crying, people who couldn't take it and were urinating and vomiting on themselves. When you get there, you already know you're in hell. You don't need anyone else to tell you.
He says the guards began savagely beating them with their fists and batons. Tell me about what they did to you personally.
4 guards grabbed me, and they beat me until I bled, to the point of agony. They knocked our faces against the wall. That was when they broke one of my teeth.
CICOT, the terrorism confinement center, was built in 2022. As a key part of Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele's sweeping anti-gang crackdown. The massive prison, designed to hold 40,000 inmates, and its harsh reputation are a point of pride for Bukele, who regularly allows social media influencers to tour it.
As you can see, we're literally in the middle of the desert.
Guards show off cramped cells where metal bunks are stacked 4 high.
This is so insane. These aren't even beds. I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic here, because I understand this is not like literal slavery. I mean, maybe it qualifies by some international definitions, but like this little layout reminds me of what slave ships look like when you go to like slave museums, where it's like just these flat, hard boards where everyone is compressed together. They have no space to move, no real place to sleep. They are urinating on each other because they're not even allowed to get up and go use the bathroom. I mean, this is disgusting. These conditions, these are torture camps, and people were sent here for doing nothing, for seeking asylum legally, for coming to a port of entry, for saying, you know what, I'm not going to come in undocumented. I want to follow the process. That deserves respect. If someone, especially under the Trump administration, if someone still says, I want to do things the right way, we should celebrate that person, not send them to a fucking torture camp.
There are no mattresses or sheets. Inmates said they had no access to the outdoors and no contact with relatives. International.
This is dark stuff. This is not normal. This is something you'd expect to see in black and white in a documentary about the 20th century. This should not be happening in 2025.
Observers warned CICOT was violating the UN standard for minimum treatment of prisoners. And 2 years ago, during the Biden administration, the U.S. State Department cited torture and life-threatening prison conditions in its report on El Salvador. But this year, during a meeting with President Bukele at the White House, President Trump expressed admiration for El Salvador's prison system.
They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games.
In March, the U.S. struck a deal to pay El Salvador $4.7 million to house Venezuelan deportees.
This is Trump's governing philosophy, by the way. He thinks you need one strong leader, and what that leader says should just be the law. What I say goes, and if anyone has a problem with that, you have to be taught a lesson. however that may be. We're going to ambush you at an immigration court. We're going to arrest you for expressing your opinion. We're going to try to censor you in the media. We're going to drone strike. I mean, whatever it is a use of force to scare people. This is why I say all they're doing is performative cruelty, because MAGA wants to see cruelty. They want to see undocumented people, trans people, gay people, people from Somalia, whoever it is. They just want to see these people suffer, right? So when Trump comes out here and he says, we have successfully blown up the Venezuelans and arrested the Latinos and insulted the Somalians, it's like, that's not actually a policy. That's just like being a bad person and making it government policy. But there's no actual rhyme and reason here other than just performing for Twitter.
At CCOT. These are heinous monsters, rapists, murderers, kidnappers, sexual assaulters, predators who have no right to be in this country, and they must be held accountable.
The U.S. government said these people are the worst of the worst.
These people are migrants. And the sad reality is that the U.S. government tried to make an example out of them.
Trump does this all the time. Anytime you see someone's civil liberties being infringed on, it is being done to make an example of them. They want to scare other people. This is why, again, a Ronald Reagan-appointed conservative judge ruled the reason the Trump administration was targeting pro-Palestinian protesters wasn't just to shut them up. It was to shut everyone up. They wanted other people to turn on the TV and see Mahmoud Khalil in handcuffs for expressing his opinion against a genocide, and they wanted other people to be scared and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't protest Israel. I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get deported. Same thing here. They are trying to use fear tactics. That is definitionally authoritarianism.
Send them to a place where they were likely to be tortured, to send migrants across Latin America the message that they should not come to the United States.
Juan Papier is a deputy director at the nonprofit Human Rights Watch. In an 81-page report released in November, the organization concluded there was systematic torture and other abuses at CCOT, and that nearly half of the Venezuelans the U.S. sent there had no criminal history. Only 8 of the men had been convicted of a violent or potentially violent offense. How do you know they weren't gang members?
We cross-reference federal databases in all 50 states in the United States, and also obtain criminal records in Venezuela and in the countries where these people live. And the information we obtain in the United States is based on data provided by ICE.
So ICE's own records said...
ICE's own records say that only 3% of them had been sentenced for a violent or potentially violent crime.
60 Minutes reviewed the available ICE data.
Again, do not let these people claim the language of law and order. It's not just the fact that Trump and his organization and his administration are all criminal people. That's not the only thing. They are actively... Remember how these people complained, the left wants to defund the police. You know what's in the big, beautiful bill? They cut funding for the FBI. And the FBI actually does do genuinely important work tracking down and hunting down child traffickers, drug traffickers, terrorists, right? But they're defunding the FBI, and where's all that money going? To ICE. And where is ICE going? After actual criminals? No. After asylum seekers, after green card holders, after visa holders, to scare them and further entrench Trump's political power. So don't even let them use the label of law and order and tough on crime. No. Criminals have it easier under Trump. Either he's going to pardon you, or whichever FBI agent was working on your case, they've now been reassigned to instead go and redact Trump's name from the Epstein files, or instead go and harass random Latino people at Home Depot just because they look a certain way or speak a certain way. Which is, by the way, why you've had over 170 U.S. citizens be detained by ICE this year. Just to put into perspective how crazy that number is, from 2015 to 2020, over that 5-year period, 120 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE. Over 5 years, 120 U.S. citizens. As of October of this year, that number was already over 170, probably over 200 at this point. U.S. citizens who were detained. In some cases, the ICE agent literally says, I don't know. You don't look like a Susie to me. You don't look like a Bob to me. You look like a foreigner. And then they're taken to detention centers where they're fed rotten food and not allowed to call their family or their lawyers. Don't forget what these people said to us. When Trump first came in, they were all like, you silly libs. It's not like they're detaining actual U.S. citizens. Notice how you never hear that talking point anymore, because they are detaining U.S. citizens.
confirms the findings of Human Rights Watch. It shows 70 men had pending criminal charges in the U.S., which could include immigration violations. We don't know because the Department of Homeland Security has never released a complete list of the names or criminal histories of the men it sent to CCOT. Rapid deportation.
Because a lot of them do not have criminal histories. And one of them probably had a valid asylum claim. This was, I believe, a gay man who was coming here from either Honduras or El Salvador. And I think he was claiming that he faced persecution because of his sexual orientation. That is like definitionally someone who would qualify for asylum. Instead, he was sent to a concentration camp.
Have been a key part of the Trump administration's immigration overhaul. The administration considers anyone who crosses the border illegally to be a criminal. Illegal crossings are now at a historic low. But some immigration...
And again, this thing of like there's the border encounters are zero now, that started in summer of 2024 when Biden shut down the border. Which you can maybe even criticize Biden for that, but Trump did not just come in and snap his fingers and all of a sudden the border was empty. No, that started in the summer before he came in. How far in the episode are we? We are like halfway through. We're like 6 minutes and 30 seconds in.
Attorneys say the administration has used flawed criteria to justify deportations.
If you guys are enjoying the live, make sure you double tap the screen, by the way.
I have some tattoos. None of them have anything to do with any criminal group. I explained to them, saying that I didn't belong to any gang, to which the agent responded, but you are Venezuelan.
60 minutes.
What the fuck?
I explained to them, saying that I didn't belong to any gang, to which the agent responded, but you are Venezuelan.
I can see why the Trump administration tried to censor this story. I can see why Barry Weiss stepped in and said, no, we're not going to air this. Right? Because apparently now CBS has this informal policy that before they report on anything, they have to first get a comment from the administration, which effectively gives the administration a kill switch to shut down any story they don't like by just refusing to comment. And I'm not surprised they refused to comment on this, because what do you even say?
60 Minutes reviewed this document agents used to assess Venezuelans. A person with 8 points was designated as a Tren de Aragua gang member and deportable. Tattoos, an immigration officer suspected of being gang-related, earned 4 points. But criminologists who study gangs say tattoos are not a reliable way to identify Venezuelan gang members because, unlike some Central American...
Do you remember when Trump thought that Abrego Garcia actually had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles because someone gave him a photoshopped image of it? The thing that's so frustrating about this is we are not just dealing with malicious people. We're dealing with incompetent, stupid, malicious people who have went mask off very quickly, which is why they're losing elections and their approval ratings in the dumpster. But we have 3 years left of this. And if this is how far we've gotten in less than a year, where are we going to be in 2027? Does everyone remember in Trump's first term when he asked his cabinet, hey, can we just start shooting peaceful protesters in the leg? Just shoot them in the leg. Teach them a lesson. They're being too rowdy. Peaceful protesters. I feel like we can see that over the next few years. If this is how far we've already gotten, why would we not see that come 2027, 2028?
Gangs such as MS-13, Tren de Aragua does not use tattoos to signal membership. Venezuelan national William Lozada Sanchez was also...
Not surprising. If I was in a covert criminal organization, I probably wouldn't put a tattoo on my forehead saying, hey, I'm in a criminal organization, come get me. What do I know?
Deported to CCOT. He told us the guards there also accuse Venezuelans with tattoos of being gang members. He detailed months of abuse and being forced into stress positions. So you had to be...
Yes, he asked Mark Esper.
For 24 hours.
Yes, because they put a guard there to watch us so that we wouldn't move.
And what would happen if you couldn't make it?
They'd take us to the island.
What's the island?
The island is a little room where there's no light, no ventilation, nothing. It's a cell for punishment where you can't see your hand in front of your face. After they locked us in, they came to beat us every half hour, and they pounded on the door with their sticks to traumatize us while we were in there.
The torture was never ending. They would take you there and beat you for hours and leave you locked in there for days.
Some of the...
You often hear people on the right who want to dog whistle like white nationalism. They'll say, these savages are destroying Western civilization. And the only savages I can see who are actually destroying Western civilization are the Trump administration.
Deportees described being sexually assaulted.
This is antithetical to what America ideally should be. No due process and cruel and unusual punishment. I can't think of something more un-American.
By the guards. They were hitting your private parts?
Sí.
With a baton?
No, they took them with their hands.
And they did that to multiple people?
To most of us.
The men say they grew weaker by the day. They claim the prison lights were left on 24 hours a day, making it difficult to sleep, and that food and medicine were often withheld.
Did you have access to clean water?
They never gave us access to clean water. The same water from our baths and toilets was the same water that we had to drink and survive on. If we had serious injuries, when the doctors examined us, they told us that drinking water would heal it.
So they're telling the injured prisoners to drink water, and the water's filthy.
Super filthy. The sicker and more injured we were, the better it was for them.
In late March, about 10 days after the first U.S. deportees arrived, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem toured the prison.
Did they speak to anybody, any of the prisoners?
Never. Not with any of the detainees. They never spoke to us. We only saw the cameras.
At some point, Secretary Noem went to another area of the prison to record this video.
First of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their president for their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them.
So gross.
There were men standing behind her, heavily tattooed. Who are those men? Do we know?
We know that those men in her video are not Venezuelans. They are Salvadorians, probably accused of being gang leaders, probably people who have been in jail for many, many years in El Salvador.
Human Rights Watch was able to confirm that with the help of this intrepid team of students at UC Berkeley's Human Rights Center.
All the visible men have either an MS on their chest or a 13 or an ES for El Salvador, and all those gangs are associated with El Salvador.
Not the Venezuelans.
Yeah.
To help verify the deportee stories for Human Rights Watch, the
I stand corrected. I didn't know members of MS-13 were outing themselves like that.
team of students combed through open source data for weeks. Students are trained in advanced techniques and follow strict international standards for obtaining digital evidence that can be
Shout out David.
used in courts. Analyzing satellite imagery, they mapped the prison and identified the building where the Venezuelans were held. And remember all those influencers who filmed inside CCOT? One toured an isolation cell.
These are the rooms of solitary confinement.
That matched the description of the so-called island where the deportees described being tortured.
And they get absolutely nothing to use to sleep or to rest. Just pure color.
A show and tell of the armory confirmed CCOT had the weapons the Venezuelans say guards used on them.
What we did see in these videos was the use of the T-batons on prisoners. Additionally, we also saw the use of painful body positions. They were showing that off in the videos. And they do that. It's sort of a practice.
But it was this interview with the prison warden that proved to be most helpful.
The light system is 24 hours a day.
One of the questions that we had was, are the lights on 24/7? He said, yes, they are. So he's talking about how hot it can get in the prison. So there's this sort of pride around the poor conditions and around the suffering.
Using extreme temperatures or light to disorient inmates is also prohibited under UN standards.
Thank you to everyone who's hopping over from David's live. And thank you to anyone who's still here from Parker's live. Nice to get 2 raids today, but shout out to David and Parker as well.
One of the things that the work of this team has really shown
This is the unreleased CBS doc, yeah.
is that a lot of these stories can be believed. And
Alexa Koenig is the director of Berkeley's Investigations Lab, which trains students to research war crimes and human rights violations.
And it's those little details that I think then, if you can bring that together with the physical evidence, I think you have the strongest possible case for accountability, whether it's a court of public opinion or at some point in a court of law.
The Department of Homeland Security declined our request for an interview and referred all questions about CCOT to El Salvador. The government there did not respond to our request.
If you guys aren't blackpilled enough about this administration, I spoke today with the former CDC director of immunization and respiratory disease. I want to just go over this interview on live because, man, what a... I don't know what the right word for it is. Does not inspire much hope. This is someone who worked directly under RFK Jr. He was the CDC director for the NCIRD, which is the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. This is where vaccine recommendations come from. And he resigned due to the leadership of RFK Jr. I was lucky enough to speak with him this morning. And I asked him some questions which I think paint a pretty scary picture of what's going on in the Trump administration right now. So I figured we might as well just cover it on stream.
There's political gain, and there's also...
How insane is that? That lawyers that are actively in litigation against CDC are being invited to CDC recommendation meetings. Oh shit, it is frozen. My bad. I'm glad someone pointed that out. That's so annoying. I don't know why that always happens. Hold on. Okay, it's unfrozen now on TikTok, and then let me unfreeze it on YouTube as well. Restart capture. Okay. I have to start it over again because the audio now is not working on YouTube. What the hell? There we go. There we go. Sorry for that.
There's political gain and there's also financial gain. People describe it as very top down. I'm going to actually describe it as top only.
Where is he getting his information from?
He's getting it from places like Children's Health Defense. He's getting it from lawyers that are litigators. There was a lawyer that presented at the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices who is currently in active litigation against HHS and CDC. There is a list of I told you so's that he needs to get through to prove that he in fact is not kooky and that he was right the whole time. And so the way to dekookify RFK Jr. is to make him right. Parts of the agency were deleted based on an AI search of does it say the word equity in it.
Are these things that are hard to undo once they've been done, or do you think that repair can be done to the process?
Yeah, I think that we're going to need a clean reboot. CDC is compromised.
All right, I am here today with Dr. Daskalakis, the former CDC director of the NCIRD. Thank you so much for making the time today.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with something that's been in the news lately and then move on a little bit more to your experience working at the CDC. So the United States is currently experiencing the biggest measles outbreak we've seen in decades. I believe Canada recently lost its measles elimination status, and there's growing concern that the same may happen here. So what exactly would that mean, and how did we end up here to begin with?
Yeah, so eliminations.
Why debate Rob Nora when you can just debate Matt Nucleotides again? Rob Nora is definitely a way more intelligent person and a way better debater than Matt Nuclear is.
Status, the way that I like to think about it is it's kind of like a vital sign for your public health system. So in order to keep measles eliminated, you need to have like a vaccine program that reaches enough people to keep the population immunity like, around 95%. You need to have communications that work for people to understand what's happening around measles. You need to have epidemiologic systems that monitor what's happening with measles. So when you lose elimination, that's kind of like saying you have a fever, that the immune system for the country is somehow not good enough to be able to maintain an elimination status for measles. Like, what does it mean to the everyday person? Not very much.
Right.
What it means, however, is that the system is in a place from the perspective of its health that measles may become an everyday part of our lives again. And that means, more sick kids, more closed schools, and then unfortunately more kids in the hospital and potentially even worse. So that's what it means.
And sort of going off of that, this idea of having a sort of immune system for the country, which I think is one of the roles our public health institutions are sort of supposed to play ideally. I want to shift gears to some of your experience in the public health system as someone who saw firsthand how things work and sort of with the recent arrival of Secretary Kennedy at the HHS. In your experience, how much did day-to-day operations at the CDC change with the arrival of RFK Jr.? Was this just a change of sort of like the figurehead and the broad-based goals, or did you see an actual difference in how the institution works?
Yeah.
This was such a cool opportunity, by the way, because I actually got to speak to someone who worked under the Trump administration and actually understands like the inner mechanics of what's going on here. So these are the best types of people to be listening to right now because they actually know up close and personal what's happening.
There is a tangible difference in the way that CDC works for a couple of reasons. So thousands of people have been fired at CDC, reducing the force to a place where, frankly, CDC is not able to deliver on its core mission of protecting the health of America. So I'll start with that. The way that happened wasn't based on like some strategy. Like, people in government know that reductions in forces can happen, but the way that normally happens is that someone has a strategic plan.
Is this too fast for people? My attention span is, this is not a debate. This is an interview. Unless you're talking about the gavel debate, in which case, yes. I'll do a quick poll. Smiley face is going to be that I can keep it at what is this at right now? 1.5 speed, and crying face is going to be that I should slow it down. So smiley face is 1.5 speed is fine, and then crying face is slow it down. I watch everything on 2x speed. So this is supposed to mean I compromise with people, but if this is too high as well, I guess I can. To everyone saying nope, I'm assuming you're saying slow it down, and just drop a emoji. Okay, yes. I'm glad to see most people are okay with this. Watching something below 1.5 speed is a real chore for me. Maybe that's an issue with my attention span, but bro's talking like he has to pee. Fine. I'm gonna be an authoritarian for the people. I'm gonna ignore the majority of the votes and my own preference, and I'm gonna slow it down to 1.25, even though the other side won.
And they talk about what they're looking for and why certain people may not be able to sort of work in that environment anymore.
Right.
And so this was quite different, where it's kind of like a patchwork of catastrophe that was created, where that whole parts of the agency were deleted based on, an AI search of, does it say the word equity in it?
This is why I said to the last guy I was debating too, it's like our government's being run by a toddler. This is such a control F the word equity, delete all those studies, defund all of them.
Which is not the way to do things. And then frankly, they've also, Adam, gotten rid of some of the core functions that sort of maintain the agency's ability to do work. Like they don't have an ethics committee anymore. They don't have an institutional review board that sort of makes sure that the research that's being done is ethical and correct. So like it's hard to get money out the door because so many people in contracting have been fired. The science, the sort of infrastructure that supports the science is so weakened that nothing can actually be executed. Like, my team that used to do, our web updates got decimated. So how does CDC do web updates? It barely can do them.
Right.
So that's the first, that they structurally changed CDC where it's just not able to deliver on its mission. And they did so with randomness rather than with vision. And then the second part is, they just made it impossible to do science at CDC because, some people describe it as very top down.
A toddler would be a step up. I agree. Because toddlers at least are not malicious.
I'm going to actually describe it as top only. So they're not really interacting like sort of down into the CDC to be able to understand the science. Things are being dictated up by the secretary's office, and they magically become policy, which is not the way that people should want their health policy to be done in the US.
Right. And sort of segueing off that point, you talk about this idea of mass firings, which I feel like we've seen sort of across multiple agencies in the executive branch thus far. I know earlier this year, there was a nutrition scientist named Kevin Hall who resigned from the NIH, stating that his work was censored and his responses to media outlets were actually altered by some of the people that were working for RFK Jr. And the idea of that becoming widespread is deeply concerning, I think, to many people. So I'm curious, to what extent did you see or hear of interference with specific research? Is there a broader risk of research not just being defunded or cherry-picked, but actually altered in some cases? Could grants be reassigned to studies that aren't scientifically valid? Or do you think that the scientific process can remain immune to this administration's efforts?
Yeah, I think that that they are breaking the scientific process. And so I think...
Yeah, if anyone wanted to watch this live and come out feeling hopeful, sorry.
From the perspective of, did I sort of myself experience any changes in data? No. I think that that's probably still the case at CDC.
That is reassuring. At the very least, according to him so far, they aren't outright making up fake data yet.
The data that's being released is coming from the same scientists, the same systems, etc. What, however, I can tell you is way different is our ability to communicate what those data mean. And so that is problematic. So I'll give an example. When I was at CDC, it was during the stretch where we had bird flu cases in farmers. And when we would find a bird flu case in a farmer, we would have a press conference. We would release information in great detail and also analysis. We would talk about the sequence of the virus and what it means. We would talk about like what the implications were for sort of future strategies around pandemic preparedness and preparedness for bird flu. The last case that happened in a person, nothing. Like they released the information, they released the data, but then there's no communication about it. Right. And so I think that is almost...
And the reason the CDC isn't communicating this data is because they don't know how to. You think RFK Jr. knows how to read a study? You think RFK Jr. understands the importance of RCTs?
Dangerous as altering data. So putting out data that doesn't have the opportunity of like the world's best scientists to be able to interpret it so that people in the US, public health departments, as well as citizens are able to sort of, make sure that they are, what's the right word? That they're actually sort of making their response to what's happening appropriate.
Keep double tapping the live if you guys think Trump should go to jail.
So calibrating their response is the word I was looking for. So that's problematic. The other thing, though, is that, we're seeing research funding that is leaving CDC and going to places through what's called sole source contracts without any clear process. So there was one that went while I was there up to a researcher in upstate New York to do autism work, and they used vaccine safety money to be able to support autism work, even though autism is not a signal that is related to vaccines.
Right.
No matter what anyone says in that administration, it just doesn't vibe. And then the other one is they just
He should go to CCOT. I think whoever wins the next election in 2028, if it's a Democrat, they should peacefully and patriotically use all of the presidential powers that Trump asserts he has, like sending random people to CCOT without due process. Who could those random people potentially be hypothetically? Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, maybe? Todd Blanche, Emile Beauvais?
A research group in Denmark to do what is likely pretty unethical research.
Because they're criminals, and you could argue they're part of a domestic tea organization. You could argue that. Hypothetically. So if anyone meets the description of who has to go to CCOT, it's them.
Africa about hepatitis B, and it was again a sole source, which just meant that they had to write a questionable justification, and then someone just writes the check. So
is that the type of thing that an ethics board previously would have weighed in on and said this is too unethical, or you have to change the parameters?
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. And
the CDC is not the only organization where ethics boards have been removed. Remember, inspectors general were fired illegally everywhere, across, I believe, over a dozen government agencies. Many of them have yet to be replaced. Inspectors general do this thing called auditing and ethics reviews, which seems like those would be pretty relevant for the Trump administration, right?
Ethics boards.
It's funny, they talked about Department of Government Efficiency, but then they fired all the actual government auditors, right? Who actually do uncover real waste and abuse. They fired them. And they were like, oh, real efficiency is when we cut funding for poor people to get food and medicine. Obama, too, he killed Anwar al-Awlaki, U.S. citizen, without due process in drone strike, so sent him to CCOT. I believe the White House lawyers determined, and this held up in court, that he posed an imminent threat to the United States and that authorized use of military force was justified there. So in terms of legally speaking, that was legal, is my understanding.
That review the data, the study request, and so we also know, that other things are happening that are potentially a bit more nefarious, which is that the secretary has brought in a researcher to look at the vaccine safety data link, which is one of the country's main sort of databases around vaccine safety. And this person, David Geyer, is someone who had previously been disallowed from touching the data.
Yeah, exactly. That guy was actively planning attacks on the U.S., right? And I mean, you can argue, I don't know the specifics. If there wasn't an imminent threat, then I'd rather have him be extradited and charged. But even on U.S. soil, if someone poses an imminent threat to your life or safety, then, I mean, lethal force can be used. Now, there's conversations to be had there about when is that power abused. There are valid conversations to have, but not comparable to what Trump's doing at all.
Of ethical breaches. And so he's, at CDC doing analyses on people's personal information, unhindered by the fact that he doesn't have a protocol, he doesn't have a hypothesis, and there's been no scientific process. So, I mean, I think that all of those are giant red flags to say that CDC is compromised.
Right, and I've seen you touch on this before as well, around the time you resigned, where you were talking about how when you left the NCIRD, at that time, RFK Jr. had not been briefed by a single top expert that was working there. Nope. And my sort of follow-up question, that I think the obvious question to that is, where is he getting his information from then? Do you have any sense of that or not really?
Yeah, I mean, seemingly he's getting it from places like Children's Health Defense.
You know how crazy it is to have access to the top public health experts on the planet? All the best of the best, the brightest people that went to the top universities, and to say, no. I don't need briefings from you. I'm going to call this anti-vax group that I have a financial interest in. They're going to give me the real information. You know how unhinged that is?
And some of the other, frankly, pretty staunchly anti-vaccine organizations. I think he's getting it from lawyers that are litigators, as evidenced by the fact that there was a litigating lawyer that presented at the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, and who is currently in active litigation against HHS and CDC. So, I think that he has a long history of colleagues who are sort of renowned for their dubious data and their dubious data interpretations. And that is, it seems, where he's getting his information.
And do you have any sense as to why he would prefer information from those sources over the top public health experts in the world? I mean, is this something he believes in good faith, that somehow the public health institutions are corrupted or evil and he has to instead go to these other groups? Or do you think there's something else going on here, like political incentives?
I mean, I think that there's political gain and there's also financial gain.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty great explanation of everything happening in Trump's second term. This is not me responding to a split screen of myself. I'm watching my interview that I did today with Dr. Daskalakis. He was the CDC director that basically was in charge of like vaccine recommendations and stuff. And he resigned earlier this year due to the failure of leadership of RFK Jr. So I got a chance to talk with him and ask him specifically, how did RFK Jr. affect our public health apparatus? And what did you specifically experience in seeing that? So we're going over that.
So from the political game, like I'll tell you, the first time that I ever thought about RFK Jr., I was in New York City leading the measles response in 2018, 2019. And, you know, he and his organization kept suing us as we were doing the work to try to control the outbreak. And I was like, who's this kooky guy that keeps suing us about, you know, because we were promoting measles vaccine during a measles outbreak. Ends up that I think that part of what's going on is that there is a list of I told you so's that he needs to get through to prove that he in fact is not kooky and that he was right the whole time. And so the way to dekookify RFK Jr. is to make him right. And because they have the ability to make, you know, decision-based evidence generation, which is what they're doing, they're going to be able to say, see, we told you the whole time, vaccines cause autism. No, they don't. But they're able to point at source documents they've created. That's number one. Number two, if you destabilize the vaccine infrastructure in just the right way, you can create opportunities for litigation that will make himself and his colleagues millions, if not more, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, isn't it weird that a lot of groups that RFK Jr. has financial ties to are in lawsuits with public health organizations that RFK Jr. has authority over? And couldn't he just make them settle all these lawsuits and just pay up to those organizations?
In the future. And so by destabilizing things like the vaccine injury compensation program, by moving vaccines from recommended to shared clinical decision-making, all of that creates opportunities for litigation that will mean many, many millions of dollars for people and organizations with which he is closely aligned. Who will be the shrapnel, however, are the kids who will not be able to access vaccines when the companies decide just not to make them anymore.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like sort of what you're getting at is this idea that RFK Jr. has already made certain claims, and now he's working within an apparatus that is sort of, in a sense, adversarial to those claims in the sense that they are more evidence-based, and he was sort of more these vibes-based medical recommendations
All
before
vibes.
so.
Yep.
And sort of on that note, I believe a few months ago, Secretary Kennedy pulled around $500 million from mRNA vaccine research. That included work, I believe, on potential cancer vaccines, among other things. And I'm curious, exactly how detrimental do you think those cuts will be? Are we talking about a minor setback or potentially losing like an entire generation of research?
I think that it's not a minor setback. I think that when you look at vaccine platforms that seemingly have like the highest potential, the mRNA vaccine platform had seemingly the highest. So I'll give you like a very concrete example.
It's so crazy to me that we just completely defunded mRNA research. I mean, it has so much potential. We could develop vaccines for different types of cancer with mRNA. And now we've cut $500 million in research into this. How many people are going to die as a direct result of that research being cut that wouldn't have died if the research still happened?
In infectious disease space.
When you do the total count at the end of this second term of how many people are going to die as a direct result of the governance of the Trump administration, it is going to be on the order of tens or hundreds of millions of people. And that is not an exaggeration. Hold on, I gotta let my dog in real quick so you guys can watch my chair react to this for like 10 seconds.
The highest potential, the mRNA vaccine platform had seemingly the highest. So I'll give you like a very concrete example in infectious disease space rather than cancer space.
Sure.
So, you know, these vaccines are being developed so that if there is a need to pivot quickly because of an emergent virus, that you could use this platform to be able to create a vaccine so that you can get vaccines sooner to prevent, you know, some of the economic and health and also, you know, frankly, population poor outcomes that you see when you have a pandemic level event. So, you know, what's happened is that they've unplugged the research that would make us be able to get a pandemic vaccine.
Such a reach? What's a reach? My claim that tens of millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of people, are going to die as a result of the Trump administration? Tell that to the 14 million people in Africa that are going to die because of Elon Musk's cuts to PEPFAR. All the people that relied on USAID and the United States more broadly for vaccines and treatment for HIV and malaria and tuberculosis, things that we can treat, lives that we can save at very low cost to us, who have now been deprived of critical medical care that is going to result in children dying for Elon Musk's vanity project of Doge, which ended up being over budget. And not a single indictment for fraud came out of that. Not one. And that's just one example.
Very quickly, and will put us back to the era before there was an Operation Warp Speed. So they're investing in platforms that are being touted as new platforms, but they're actually decades-long old platforms.
How many people are going to die because they had a valid asylum claim and they were sent back to their home country without getting their due process in their day in court, who are going to die because they're going to be victimized in their home country? These people have blood on their hands to a degree that is not normal. Obviously, being involved in the American government and making decisions for the military and for public health, there's always going to be an effect on human life. People are going to die as a result of either missteps or malicious behavior. This is a structural revamping of how our entire government works to maximize performative cruelty and leave people hanging who need us. Leave them to die. This is not American. This is like Darwinism. The strong rise to the top and they benefit at the expense of everyone else. And if you don't like it, you're part of the problem. That's the governing philosophy here.
With not a lot of data, and they've exchanged that for mRNA platforms that frankly look good for a lot of things. There's flu studies that happened that show that the mRNA vaccine may in fact be better than the current flu vaccines, but that stuff is kind of dead in the water. And so like the main thing is for me, I feel like we are less prepared for a bad infectious disease thing now than we were before because of the loss of jobs.
How cooked are we if there's another COVID? We were already not prepared for COVID. And now our entire public health apparatus has just been gutted.
Because of the sort of like destabilization of science, but frankly, because we're not going to have...
And you know who survives if there's another pandemic, right? It's Trump and all of his rich criminal friends. The people that die and get sick are the poor working class people whose healthcare is being taken away from them.
Platform that we need to be able to do the work. And so, it may not be next year, it may not be the year after. RFK Jr. may be way gone by the time it happens, but this is going to have, a decade-long implication if we don't use a platform that looks as if it could protect us from a bad outcome.
And how much do you think that those types of risks can be mitigated by, for example, next administration comes in and has a little bit more of an evidence-based public health apparatus? Are these things that are kind of hard to undo once they've been done, or do you think that repair can be done to the process?
Yeah, I think that we're going to need a clean reboot. So it's kind of, when I think about it is sort of like your smartphone. So like this is a smartphone where like a bunch of good apps have been.
My micro teacher said we're coming up on half-life for a lot of diseases to mutate. Yeah, this is the thing. America is doing this bad without any actual overt crisis, right? Like no one has attacked us. There's no pandemic happening. It seems like we're not like in a depression or anything right now, but all of our governmental safeguards and institutions that are meant to help us be more resilient and reactive to negative shocks on our economy or our society or our national security, all of those public apparatuses have been gutted and destroyed and filled with loyalists who have no idea what they're doing. What is Kash Patel going to do, and what is Pam Bondi going to do if there's an actual large-scale terror attack on the U.S.? They're probably going to blame the radical left, right? And then use that as a pretext to interfere with elections. That's what's going to happen.
Deleted. They've corrupted the operating system, and then they cracked the screen.
Right.
At some point, even though you love the phone because it's your phone, like you need to sort of do a clean reset. So I think that we're kind of at the point where so much damage has happened that there will likely be a mainly need for a clean reset. There are going to be some things that at the core will continue to function because they're not negotiable. But I do think that it's going to take more than just like a little spackle and paint to fix the problem. Like there's going to need to be like a reevaluation of the foundation. And so I think it's going to need to be a little bit of a clean reset. And like
if there's a terror attack, I'll see you in Valhalla.
Research, like, I grew up in the HIV era, and I think about like how like entire like like a whole generation of people that could have been my mentors had been deleted because of the illness. And so I sort of look at this and say, like, you can't just delete 3 to 4 years of scientists and assume you're going to be back to normal.
Right.
And so I think that there's going to be a lot of work to do to make these scientific and medical careers look appealing to people after they've been really, destroyed.
And it seems like, evaluating this from an outsider's perspective, I think the risk is not only just what's been happening within the systems of public health, but it seems like a lot of this sort of started, unfortunately, during COVID, where there was this entire new school of thought that all of a sudden things are now up for debate that seemed to be settled science for decades prior. So to wrap up, I kind of want to ask you a more macro level question and get your thoughts on this. So I've noticed a trend in people's perception of public health, especially since COVID, where confidence is often confused for competence to the point where updating or correcting your views can be seen as a sign of inconsistency rather than honesty. And you saw this a lot with changing guidance on masks and vaccines during COVID, which seemed like, oh, there's a new mutation or there's a new guidance. There's actually a reasoning behind that versus it's being done for some nefarious reason. And I'm curious, given the fact that science is ever changing almost by definition, do you think it's at a structural disadvantage against people who seek to undermine it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think you hit that in one of the most eloquent ways I've ever heard.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, because science moves.
I was kind of gassed when you said that.
Fast, but not as fast as social media.
Praise. Right.
And so, I can speak to it as a health official that was working in New York City during the COVID outbreak. At the beginning, I was the incident commander for COVID, and one day we were saying, vaccine prevents COVID, and then I got the call from people in Provincetown that had the Delta wave.
Right.
And we were like, and so there's just the reality that
this is an issue in general with bad faith actors. People that are lying to you and feeding you misinformation and disinformation will always be extremely confident and extremely consistent. People that are being honest with you, actual experts in fields of science and even social sciences, their opinions and beliefs will change as they gain more evidence, right? So when you look at the COVID vaccine, at first, it did prevent disease very effectively. Then new variants came in. It was more useful for preventing serious illness. And preventing serious illness reduced the number of droplets coming out of your mouth or your nose, which would reduce indirectly transmission, right? But when these scientists were saying, okay, new variant, new guidance, we're also giving guidance based on the supply of masks, etc., and the supply of vaccines, instead of the public saying, I'm glad our public health apparatus is changing what it's saying when they learn new stuff. The way it was framed by the Joe Rogans and the entire right-wing podcast sphere was one day they say no masks, the next day they say masks. One day the vaccines cure the disease, the next day they only prevent serious symptoms, right? And they almost use this honesty as an attack.
In general, in this new era, science needs to be comfortable with uncertainty.
Right.
And needs to actually say it. So it's like, this is what I know today, and this could change tomorrow, because it's probably going to change tomorrow, especially if there's something new going on. So I think that there's an inherent disadvantage because, social media is used for receipts, and it can be changed in a way that ultimately means that, it can look as if someone said something wrong when really they were saying what they knew then. And so that's why it's really important in health communication to always temper this is what I know now, and this is what, and this is the direction we're going, but this could change in the future. That ends up being so critical because I think exactly it's the nature of science that, especially when there's new things going on, that there's going to be evolution. In fact, if there isn't evolution, then you're probably not doing the right work.
Right. And when it comes to sort of combating that issue, do you think the better way to do it is to focus on sort of targeting misinformation, or do you think there needs to be an update to how science is sort of communicated to the general public to make it more palatable for them?
Yeah, I think all of the above are true. Mm-hmm. So I think that you need, like when I was doing the measles outbreak in New York, 2018, 2019, one of the sort of routine teachings was do not take the bait from from someone who's like sort of doing, sort of kooky anti-vax stuff.
Right.
And that was wrong. And so we didn't do that. We actually countered the misinformation and disinformation. Some of it was disinformation, right, with, good information that was appropriate for the population and all of that. That was a really important piece of what we did. So you have to do that. But I think also scientists need to learn how to be better communicators. And
this is so true. I'm so glad he said this. Not just scientists, experts in general need to learn how to be better communicators. People who are economists and people who are well studied in geopolitics, who are actual experts on these hot issues that are in our news cycle every single day, they need to be at the forefront of the conversation. Because if it's not them, it's a bunch of people who don't know what they're talking about, but have the confidence as if they do. Like the last guy I just talked to, I'm bringing up Jerome Powell and stats from the Federal Reserve, and he's saying, so what? Expert schmexpert. I know just as much as them. That has been a change that has started under Trump. It is catastrophic. And I understand institutions can be flawed and they need to be malleable to public sentiment, but we cannot just ignore the opinions of people that actually have dedicated years of their life to research and education. Someone asked a great question. What is the difference between disinformation and misinformation? I asked him the same question.
I feel like, this is not a characteristic or skill that is valued in medicine or in science as much as it ought to be.
Right.
And so, I think that we need to work on our scientists better, able to sort of do what they do every day. Like they always talk about, like, here's my estimate, and there's a confidence interval around it. So like those words.
Confidence interval. Something, I mean, should the average person know what a confidence interval is? I don't know. Right? It's saying with this level of certainty, the actual answer lies within this range of numbers, right? The way that science is always going to work, you're never going to get an absolute answer. You're going to get predictions and ranges with different degrees of confidence based on the data you have.
Make any sense to anybody. Like what makes sense is like, here's what I think is happening. And then there can be other stuff that could happen too. Like, and so
it's not a stupid question. Misinformation and disinformation are often used interchangeably when they are very different things. And Dr. Daskalakis did a really good job of breaking that down when I asked him.
I think that there just needs to be both debunking, pre-bunking the mis and disinformation, but also having like a different humility. The problem comes when science and politics gets really close together. And this is every day, right? Every day in public health, science and politics come close together.
Right.
But when science is asked to be more absolute than it can be, the role of a scientist is to push back.
I agree. You can put confidence intervals in accessible terms. A lot of terms and ideas that come from experts, they can be very effectively communicated to the average person if it's done well, which is the big if.
And to say, I can't say it that absolutely. I need to have some uncertainty around it, even though that doesn't necessarily generate the same level of confidence today. Because
IPCC says things about how certain they are in public reports, and they do okay with that wording. Yeah, and the right, of course, does not believe the IPCC or anything having to do with climate science.
Trust me, it will preserve our confidence in the future.
Right, and I think you touched on something really important there, which is this idea that it seems like the word of experts has sort of been devalued in society over like the past decade. I mean, I studied economics, and I noticed this in my field as well, where it seems like, again, it's just confidence is seen as being correct, and people that hedge what they're saying or say this could end up being not true are often at a disadvantage. And you brought up specifically misinformation and disinformation. So explain, what is the difference between those two?
Misinformation is just saying something that's wrong without like an intent, right? It's just like, the sky is purple.
Mm-hmm.
But disinformation is saying the sky is purple and therefore you should make sure that you wear orange glasses, like because I'm selling them.
Right.
And so it's that you there's a motive. There's like you're trying to give that information, that incorrect information, to generate a certain behavior that is.
People literally do entire courses, majors in science communication. Where are they? We need them.
That has other gain.
Okay, well, Dr. Daskalakis, I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate you sharing your insights. To close off, is there anything you'd like to share and something that you think, I mean, there's been so much happening in the news, it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. What is one thing you think the average person should be aware of that they're not aware of right now?
I think my number one thing is don't take your health advice from a political appointee or a politician. Talk to your clinician. That is who you should take your health advice from, because they actually have your personal well-being in their mind and in their heart. Thank you. That I think is the most important thing.
Right. Okay, awesome. Thank you again so much for your time. Have a great one. Okay, I think that is it for the live today. We got a debate, if you want to call it that, out of the way. Whatever that was with that guy that was just rage baiting me the whole time and didn't have any evidence. We got that out of the way. We covered some of the recent news on CCOT. And I guess we can quickly cover real quick something which I think is massive news, which is that the Supreme Court is doing their job. I know this is shocking news. The Supreme Court is doing their job correctly, which is pretty hit or miss for them. Sometimes they surprise me positively. Other times they give people criminal immunity for the presidency. So, that was not meant to be the 6-7 symbol, by the way. Trump administration live update: Supreme Court refuses to allow National Guard deployment in Chicago. Because it turns out you can't just use the military to enforce domestic law. And that used to be not controversial a few years ago. It's become controversial because Trump has claimed he has the right to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and anyone who tries to stop him is either the deep state or the enemy from within, or as Stephen Miller likes to say, the Democratic Party is not a political party, it is, quote, a domestic extremist organization. Stephen Miller is the same guy who called judges that struck down Trump's National Guard deployments domestic terrorists. That is what they do to people who rule against them in court cases. Now, it's going to be interesting to see, do they abide by this? Because this National Guard deployment is a massive part of Trump's plan to steal the election, right? There are drafted plans from Trump's first term that he's been keeping in hiding. He's been saving them up. You can find them, that basically have the Secretary of Defense federalize the National Guard and send them to polling places in swing states to seize their voting machines and take them back to Washington, D.C. for the DNI to assess them, who would be Tulsi Gabbard. Do we trust Pete Hegseth sending National Guard members to take our voting machines and give them to Tulsi Gabbard so she can analyze the results and tell us who the real winner is? I don't think anyone trusts that. And this is a big response, a big detriment and a big hurdle to their plans to interfere with our elections and steal our elections. So I'm going to be curious to see, does the Trump administration actually adhere to this SCOTUS ruling, or do we go full dictator, where they just say, cool ruling, Supreme Court. Anyways, back to what we were doing with the National Guard. Because they can do that, right? This is the one thing I always say. I'm going to say it to close off. The only branch of government that actually has power is the executive branch. They have to choose to abide by court decisions. They have to choose to abide by congressional appropriations. But if one day Trump wakes up and he manages to centralize all executive power, he can just tell the Treasury, hey, just spend the money where I want to spend it. Ignore the congressional appropriations. He can tell the IRS, hey, just tax according to how I want to tax. Ignore the congressional tax schedule. He can just tell the U.S. Marshals and the DOJ, hey, just do what I tell you. Arrest who I tell you to arrest. Ignore the court orders. If they order the guards in during elections and the armed forces don't disobey, America is done. Here's the thing. All it takes for America is done is a small percentage to obey Trump. And what I'm worried about seeing is that he tries using the National Guard for something clearly illegal and authoritarian, and then you see the National Guard splintering into factions, pro-Trump and anti-Trump, or pro-Constitution and anti-Constitution, which is the more accurate way to put it. Anyways, I think I've sufficiently taken away everyone's hope who's been watching today. I don't need to kick everyone while they're down. I'm down with you guys. We're cooked. But this is why I like James Tallarico. He said there's a cycle of destruction and creation. So whenever something is destroyed, there's potential for something better to be created in its wake. Also potential for something much worse, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Everyone have a good night. I enjoyed the live today. If anyone is still here from the Parker raid or the David raid, thank you for tuning in. We hit whoa. I wasn't looking. We hit 257,000 likes today on the live. Holy shit. Wow, okay. And, okay, this was fun.